the Asbury Park Press, the Middletown Patch, and the Middletown Township Public School District website, and the posting of such notice at the August T. Minor administrative offices in each elementary, middle, and secondary school in the district. Roll call.
Mrs. Camanetti? Mr. Cody? Mr. DeFranco?
Here.
Mr. Donlin?
Here.
Mr. Little? Mrs. Stella?
Here.
Mrs. Walsh?
Here.
Mrs. Rogers? Mrs. Minnies?
Here. I need a motion to go into closed session. We don't have any student speakers tonight.
So next.
Yes. A motion to go into closed session for personnel items, contract negotiations,
So moved.
Second.
any kind of personnel. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
There's fluid in one of her ears. They said I have to watch communication. She just got over being sick for the last 2 weeks, so I'm like, I know. Thank you for asking, though. Thank you.
Then I went over to another one, and I said, I said, this looks like May.
Oh, that's awesome.
You know what?
Okay. I do. I do a lot of this. I recognize it with my friends. I wasn't going to go over to his
No, I'm not. I mean, so that's something are ridiculous. I don't even know, like, and then when she does,
yeah, they were Sunday.
she does lessonplan.edu, and then she puts a link to specific connection, the link, the teaching, the actually gave the link to I gave her several.
Nearby, you know?
Right to the left.
Yep, right up the north to the left. You know what? That would make science and it's just like, I mean, for the general stuff. Yeah. Listen, I was going to say, no judgment. There's a lot of opportunities.
They just keep you
I don't think so. I mean, I did probably comment. Some of them did comment for each.
199.
Avery was sorting.
Cupcake tins, and your 14 board has 24 cupcakes.
Yeah, I do.
That was brilliant. The restaurant pizza. Or the 12.
I like that. She went to another time. I'm still using yeah, but I don't want, it's very, or something, it's not exactly. I'm just going to stand next to her. I think she's a doctor. Stan's like moving, he's like, well, actually, she works with me, she's a teacher. Maybe actually she'll be moving. Don't be jealous. Okay. I was late last night.
So,
Not double it.
what do you mean? You do what? No, we have to send it. Shut up.
We know that they were on vacation. Just got me. That's all right. She will only do it in 15 seconds. Really? Really?
Hi. Yeah, and I got her. She's
How long did it take? Walks away. I said, good morning. I go, figure it out. You gotta be getting
That's insubordination.
Yeah, but it's my fault. I have to do it. So you have to do it.
Well, but Wendy will run yours.
I know, Wendy's so sweet. And then, like, she ran it. I mean, it takes yes. Seriously, I don't want her back in my belt. I took the pregnancy for I don't want that. She's crazy. I can't have a great friend. She's crazy. How long she went?
Township.
She's not come back. That's great. That's right. Shaking your whole
So we're looking at somebody.
I didn't have it. Thank you. Thank you, Jay.
Dawn, in HR.
I'm not saying not, but we that's not the show anyway, unless there was a one-way mirror.
My parents ask me to do that too. You do whatever you want, but I would stay out. I would use it.
Okay, we'd like to call the meeting to order. Adequate notice of this meeting was provided by sending such notice to the Asbury Park Press, the Middletown Patch, and the Middletown Township Public School District website, and the placing of such notice at the August T. Minor administrative offices in each elementary, middle, and secondary school in the district. Roll call.
Mrs. Caminiti?
Here.
Mr. Cody?
Here.
Mr. DeFranco?
Here.
Mr. Donovan?
Here.
Mr. Little? Mrs. Stella? Here. Mrs. Walsh? Here. Mrs. Rogers?
Here.
Mrs. Minnies?
Here. I'd like to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, but also for a moment of silence for Patricia Gasparini, who passed away on Sunday, September 30th, 2018. Pat was a music teacher for the district for 24 years before retiring from Bayshore Middle School in 2005. Our thoughts and prayers are with her family. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, we're going to start with our committee as a whole voting agenda. We have a couple of presentations on there. Park, 2018 park results.
Presentation, did you want to go in order?
Go in the order. You can go in the order.
So Dave's up first for technology.
I'm just reading
You're
it
reading
here.
it right off?
Yeah.
Scan the prompts, I won't write down it.
My bad.
We can do that right now as a technology.
Oh,
Yeah. We also have a proclamation for National Principals Month. That's okay. In honor of the service of all elementary, middle level, and high school principals, and to recognize the importance of their work in school leadership so that every child has access to high-quality education, and to celebrate school leader accomplishments, the month of October 2018 is hereby designated in New Jersey to be National Principals Month. So please make sure as you're out and in our schools, please recognize all of our administrators.
Would our principals here, please stand?
Thank you.
Advisors, directors, district directors too, but it's principals.
Okay.
Okay, so as you know, each year, by state statute, the district is required to do its annual presentation of student performance on statewide standardized assessments. And for the 4th year in a row, we are reporting on our student performance on PARC, the partnership that the New Jersey State Department of Ed has entered into with the PARC Consortium. That's the assessment that we deliver. And I'm not going to go point for point because a lot of this can be viewed and also reviewed, should you choose. The presentation will be on our district website tomorrow. As I mentioned, this is the 4th year that last spring actually was the 4th year for which we administered the PARC. And all students in grades 3 through 11 take a English language arts assessment that is the assessment to really determine their achievement with end of year grade standards for that grade when it comes to English language arts standards. And in mathematics, students 3 through 8 take a mathematics exam, and then at the high school level, students, depending on their enrollment in certain courses, take an end of course exam in Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2. Really, the information that we get back as a result of the students taking these assessments is crucial. Regardless of what assessment or platform is administered, measuring a student's success or knowledge of grade level content standards is integral to knowing how to best formulate instruction for that student moving forward. It's really like a diagnosis. You know, when you go for your yearly checkup with your doctor and they do blood work and they take your blood pressure and they do check-ins on your overall health. It's kind of like a check-in on students' overall academic health and well-being and where they stand in relation to the standards or the skills and concepts that the state recognizes that they should have proficiency with or achievement with on any given year. We as district administrators and our teachers use this data to plan instruction for the following year for those students based upon their results. Students use this data, and especially in the older grades, to evaluate their own overall academic performance and profile in setting personal goals for themselves and where they need to maybe refocus or double down on certain skills or concepts. And we also look at it as administrators and teachers in reflecting on how did we do last year with those students. So where do we maybe need to change in the way we deliver curriculum or what our curriculum, the resources that we use to best meet the needs of any given student in any given grade. It also allows teachers to self-reflect on maybe, how come my students in my class didn't do so well as my neighbor next door? And what are you doing differently when it comes to the use of synonyms, in my students' writing, or antonyms, or other forms of written language, or skills. It also allows us to track areas where students may need specific remediation or intervention and prescribe specific types of interventions to address those areas where they need to show growth beyond what would, in addition to what is expected in that current year that they're now in. And with that, I'm going to just remind everyone that if you have a student in the district who took one of these assessments, the reports remain unchanged. And we're glad to report that another year came by and we got the data results even quicker. So each year, as we've administered PARC, it has gotten better. The turnaround time and our ability to get results to parents has really improved. And the way that the state reports out on student performance is on a rubric, a 5-scale rubric, with 5 indicating that the student is actually exceeding grade level expectations. 4 is kind of like what we target, you know, like that is like what we minimally expect of students. That means that they are meeting whatever is expected of them in that particular content or grade level. And then as we see other levels like 3, 2, and 1, that's where we draw additional attention, and maybe that's where we put additional interventions or services in place for students who aren't meeting the grade level expectations. So there's a lot of numbers that are up here on the screen. And by state code, we are obligated to report out on these results in such a kind of overwhelming, granular way. Thank you. But again, you can go back and revisit this. If you are a parent in the district, or if you're just a community member and you would like to see a more thorough report out on a specific school's set of students' performance, the building principals will be giving a building-specific review of their building data at future PTA meetings. Those mostly occur in November and December as a follow-up to this. But I'm going to turn the presentation over to Mrs. O'Hagan. Mrs. O'Hagan is our District Director of Content such as English Language Arts. So she's going to speak specifically to our students' results when it comes to that area.
I will second everything that Mrs. Peekins just said regarding the way that we use the data. The test in and of itself doesn't have any value unless we can take the data that it then provides us and inform our instruction and have our teachers differentiate and target individual student goals. So what this shows you here is 3 years worth of data, 3rd grade through 11th grade, from 2016, 2017, 2018. What this doesn't show, and the way that we like to look at data, is what's called a cohort analysis. Like, we want to look at the 3rd graders from 3 years ago and see how they did in 4th grade and then in 5th grade and track their progress over time. That really is the only true way to measure the effectiveness of our instruction. And we are now very fortunate to have Linkit as a tool to help us analyze data, drill down, sort and sift, and create custom reports so that we are really able to pinpoint needs. And Mrs. Van Glon, Mrs. Merrow, and I have already got some ideas about things that we know we want to do in certain grade levels that are a direct result of our studying the data that has been analyzed through Linkit. They actually take all of the state data and they then put it in a very useful format for us to drill down. This shows our 2018 English Language Arts results for grades 3 through 8. You can go over them again at your leisure. I don't want to read a list of numbers to you. What you can see, though, in the last 3 columns indicate the state score, Middletown Public Schools scores, and the green arrows next to the first columns all indicate that our students in all of those levels are scoring well above the state averages. In grades 10 and 11, we have a significant problem with our students engaging in the assessment in 10th and 11th grade. We're hoping that changes to the part that Mrs. Peekins will explain later on in the presentation is going to help us overcome this resistance that 10th and 11th graders seem to have to taking the assessment seriously. Last year in 2017, we had 6,428 students participate in the English Language Arts assessment across the district, and this year we had a slight uptick of a little more than 120 additional students, 6,543, which means we are getting more participation and fewer people deciding not to take the assessment.
Okay, now the math slides. That looks an awful lot like the English Language Arts slide. It's the same setup. Each of the levels for 3 years, it shows the percentage of students who scored in that level each of the 3 years, 2016, 17, and 18. Again, this is something you'd want to look at more leisurely on the website when it's put up if you're interested. I'm going to reiterate what Mrs. O'Hagan said. cohort data is much more important. Looking and seeing how the same child did from 3rd to 4th to 5th, or the same group from 3rd to 4th to 5th, comparing this year's 3rd to last year's 3rd to the year before is really not as useful data-wise, but that's how the state sets up the template, so that's what we're providing, okay? This slide also, you notice something looks very similar in the last column. At every grade level from 3rd straight through to Algebra 1. Remember, some of our students take Algebra 1 in 8th grade, and some of them take Algebra 1 in 9th grade. We might even give you who take it in 10th grade, but whenever they take Algebra 1, they're grouped together. That's what's different about math. It's by subject come high school, not by grade, okay? But you can see that we exceeded the state in every grade, all the way up to Algebra 1, and then comes geometry and Algebra 2. Same issues with the 10th and 11th graders for the most part, either not taking the test or not taking it seriously, not a graduation requirement, those kinds of things at that point in that age. So, okay? This is also the participation slide for mathematics. In math, it's a little different than language arts. You can see the participation was slightly 1/3 of 1% less in 2018 than it was in 2017. We give the math test after the language arts test. So they take several days of language arts, then they take math. I suspect that has something to do with why less kids were taking it at that point. Some of them may be tested out, among other things, but either way, there were slightly less in math. Not significant, however. Okay, this slide is about our SATs. Since we're talking about testing performance, we're also including the SATs, because that is a test that, of course, high schools give throughout the country. And the 11th graders last June compared to the 11th graders the June before, if you compare the yellow line, which is the most recent data that we have, to the line underneath it, the row underneath it, you can see the number of students that took the test was off by 1. It's almost the exact same number of students, coincidentally. Okay, you can compare High School North last year to this year, and I believe the difference is like 39 points higher this year than last year at High School North. Nice, right? At High School South, it's about 9 points lower. It's not significant, but you know, kudos to North. Again, it's different students in the 11th grade this year than last year that may have taken it. Different size student body too. And then the last two columns are the most interesting, and that's something I want to draw attention to. The district mean score 1146 last year compared to the previous year. Notice it's higher. It went from 1122 to 1146. However, in the state, it went down, but Middletown went up. So that's, you know, congratulations to Middletown. That's something worth noting, okay? All right, you're probably aware that in the past we have also tested our students on science and had that data to share, but we have no data to share this year because the tests last year were field tests. The science standards changed, and we're now teaching the next generation science standards, K-12, throughout the state and in our district. So they're testing out new questions. It's a much more rigorous test they're giving, but again, we have no data. They didn't give us back data after last year's field test. We expect this year, when the test counts and it's not a field test, that we will be getting data back for next year to look at. So stay tuned for science.
Thank you, Mrs. Caruso. As she just mentioned a few minutes ago, maybe it was seconds as fast as you talked.
Yeah, maybe.
There will be some changes coming to the statewide assessment that will be delivered to all students. If you've been following the news, you may have seen that there have been articles. The governor has been did form a task force comprising of educators, parents, students across the state to look at what he felt was something that he had received as feedback, which was that we needed to make some changes to the park assessment. So what they have announced and will be up to the New Jersey Board of Education, the overall statewide Board of Education will be voting on this shortly, is what we've been told. But the proposal that they have received includes reducing the overall length of time and length of tests when it comes to the statewide administration. So across the different grade levels, the ELA units in each grade will be reduced from 3 tests, or 3 units they call them, to 2 units, which means the overall number of questions will be reduced, and the overall length of time in the administration of the test will be reduced approximately 75 to 90 minutes overall, just for language arts. And in mathematics, they're also looking at fewer testing blocks or units and reducing the overall length of the math administration from 60 to 90 minutes overall, an overall reduction. In addition, this is the big change that I think will likely address some of the situation that we're seeing, some of the issues we've been seeing the last couple of years with our grade 10 and 11 ELA results and our Algebra 2 and geometry results. As you can see behind me, what the state is proposing, what the DOA is proposing for the board, state board to approve, is that they will officially recognize taking the ELA grade 10 assessment as the measure to indicate that a student has met their high school graduation responsibility, so that if by passing the ELA 10 statewide assessment, you have met your high school graduation requirement. The same will be true of the Algebra 1 assessment. That will meet your mathematics and, of course, high school graduation requirement. They are reinstituting what they called a menu of options that they had about 2 or 3 years ago that were due to be phased out. They're reintroducing alternate measures or ways in which students can demonstrate or meet their high school graduation requirement, and that can be after they have sat through all of the required assessments. So it is a student who, whether they pass, show proficiency or meeting expectations or not, they will have had to have sat for each of the assessments for the course that they have taken that are available. And if they fail to meet the expectation or earn at least a 4 on that grading rubric that this park uses, then they can also use an ACT score, an SAT score, ASVAB, or AccuPlacer score to meet graduation requirement. This is just an example of what an overall student performance report looks like if you don't have a student. If you do, you've seen this and you know exactly it is a sliding scale that the report indicates. It shows in the arrow where your student score lies, and it shows where it is in relation to the overall scoring mechanism.
Those are clickable links.
That's my last slide. So this will all be available on the district website. Those clickable links are there. It helps you better understand your student's report, as well as translation services for any parents who need a Spanish version or other language. Okay, thank you very much. Board members have any questions?
Oh, thank you so much for doing that.
Actually, Kim, I do have a
Yes.
question. If the student doesn't achieve a passing grade in the Algebra 1 or ELA 10 and goes to that menu, are any of those menu options, the SAT, the ACT, I'm not familiar with the other two, are any of them offered free of charge because they have to pay to take the ACT and the SAT?
Mr. Ranella, the ASVAB, I believe, is available for all students free of charge, correct? And AccuPlacer, I believe we administer in the district. Is there a nominal fee? I think it's a nominal fee. Yeah. As former high school principal, I knew you might have a better recollection of that than I would. It's been a while since I thought about that. All right. Thank you. Okay. Stay tuned. Maybe we'll have more information for you once the state board talks about the changes. Do you want us to roll right into that other presentation? Yes. Okay. Oh, sorry.
Are we allowed to ask questions?
We typically haven't been doing questions during presentations, or how do
We can allow it for a couple of minutes.
Okay.
So we don't have to go back to it at the end.
Okay.
I just had a question. If your child scored in 1, 2, or 3, so they're not at or exceeding grade level, what intervention or what notification should we expect as parents from either their teacher or their principal? Because obviously we got it over the summer, so their last year teacher probably sees it but can't act on it. Should we be proactively approaching the teachers or principals? Should we expect the district to kind of flag these kids and let us know if they need additional intervention or assistance?
Do you want to talk about that in terms of where it falls into our tier interventions?
I'll talk about it as far as ELA goes.
Okay.
Again, recognizing that this is one measure of the child's ability. So as far as ELA goes, they will look at their performance on the F&P benchmarking system, which assesses their reading level and their reading comprehension. They'll look at their results on the on-demand writing prompts that they do 3 times a year that are scored using a very consistent rubric that's aligned to the New Jersey Student Learning Standards. They'll use their performance in class. There are a lot of other variables that will go into that. If a child does fall into an area where the classroom teacher sees that they're performing below grade level, we have an intervention program, and we have some very highly skilled reading development teachers that go into those classrooms to work with those classroom teachers to develop Tier 1 intervention plans. And what they basically are they look at the progression of skills that you need to go through to become very fluent in literacy, in reading and writing and speaking and listening. And they come up with a SMART goal that aligns with where the student is at that point in time. So it's a manageable, measurable goal that the reading development teachers help the teachers develop to work with that student. They log the interventions, they keep track of them, we log them in Google Docs right now so that they can be shared with all other teachers that the student may have. They can be shared if they should get to a point where Tier 1 intervention isn't being successful, and we may then need to move on to a more intense intervention, which would be Tier 2. That would require parent notification, because what we would be then asking is permission to take your child out of the regular classroom, not during the subject area that they're having difficulty in, but during another time in the school day to work with the reading development teacher to have additional supports in that area. Same time, the Tier 1 interventions that the teacher has been putting in place still remain. They don't go away if a child goes into Tier 2 intervention. If that Tier 2 intervention, which is being monitored and recorded and tracked and shared, if that's not reaching the goal that we have for that child, we move to Tier 3 intervention, which is an even more intense level of intervention where the reading development teacher sees the child in a smaller group or maybe even individually over more frequent times over the week to work on that skill and records the effectiveness and looks for alternative means to address that need. And to date, we've been pretty successful with our tiered intervention model, and we have gotten a lot of students either up to grade level or exiting out of Tier 3, back into Tier 2, out of Tier 2, back into Tier 1, and then in the classroom performing at grade level.
And all of this is part of the INRS process, the intervention and referral process. As the principals, I see them shaking, and the SBSS is back there shaking their heads.
And the learning
I do want to stress, though,
and the same is told true for math.
and I do want to stress that the interventions that I'm referring to, they're not just for students who have a PARCC score. Because remember, the first time we can use that PARCC score is at the beginning of 4th grade, when a student has finished. So we're talking about these interventions in kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade on up. And then if this data comes along and shows, again, either a discrepancy between what we're seeing in the classroom or further, cements our feeling that this child needs support, we do whatever it is that we need to bring that child up. And we use linkage data to drill down to exactly what they needed.
For that child. That was my next question.
Exactly.
Is there a deeper dive you can do kid by kid?
By child, by different strands of skills.
As a matter of fact, we began the year in math with a test that's very similar to PARCC. Like the 4th graders took a 3rd grade test as the year started. We can measure summer fallout as well as, and we have the actual questions we can look at. Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
When will this change be implemented as far as going from PARCC to, or is it soon, or do you have like an actual schedule?
The change will be, if the state board passes the recommendation that's coming out of the NJDOE, it would be effective in the 1920 school year.
19 to 20?
Next school year.
Okay.
So this year, the state is committed to its contract with PARCC.
Is there any reason why it might not go through, or does it look favorable?
All indications that I've seen is that it looks very favorable.
Okay, now, if it were to do that, that means that there's no PARCC, there's no other test, or you don't...
The state would create its own, what we've been told, that is the plan. It'll be called, just like we went from Common Core to New Jersey Student Learning Standards with some tweaks to the Common Core language that was the federal standards a couple years ago.
Graduation requirements, though, you could actually just do the Algebra 1 and do the English test.
Correct.
And then pass whatever passing grade those, and that is like your requirement, you did well on them, and then you won't have to take the PARCC. I guess in the sense, or that new test.
That will be the part.
That's called the New Jersey Student Learning Assessments, math, 9th grade is Algebra 1.
So they're not going to call them something else, they're just going to...
Well, they are going to call them the New Jersey Student Learning Standards
It's not like different than that, okay.
Yes.
All right, gotcha.
Yes. They're going to repackage, I believe, and probably go contract with a different vendor is what I've been hearing. Nothing has been officially released on that. I think they're waiting for us to see if the board authorizes these recommendations. Then my understanding is they're going to contract with another vendor to create the New Jersey's own test to test their New Jersey Student Learning Standards, which have very much similarity and origin rooted in the Common Core state standards.
That's it. I didn't know if they were going to match up with brand new numbers. And
Nope.
standards. Okay.
Same standards that we've been using for the last 2 years since they were revised. Yep.
One last question on the cohort study that you're talking about. Have you done that yet, or you haven't yet?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Are you seeing similar results where it's progressing?
We're seeing some really great gains in the upper bands of elementary and middle school, especially with English language arts. We're really seeing the real fruit of our labor with our workshop initiative. We're also seeing very good success as the bands increase. And it's not surprising, and Dr. George, Mrs. Walker, and I have had 17 meetings over the last couple weeks with every single school principal. Individual meetings with every principal to talk about their school's data analysis and their PARC results as part of that. And the principals have really come in and impressed us with their data teams analysis of their students' results, and where specifically on each grade levels they're seeing like concerns with certain standards in the different schools, and how their teachers and their data teams are making plans to address those individual issues at those schools. And some of that is logical. Like there are some mathematical concepts that, although they build on prior concepts, are kind of newer once you get to 4th or 5th grade. Yeah, the content kind of shifts. So it's not unusual to see students struggling with certain standards at that point, because there's not a lot of prior knowledge, to build on. And then when you see those standards retested again, or similar ones at different grade levels, to that grade level's magnitude, you do see a lot of success. So that is, we are recognizing the directors and the supervisors have analyzed this data. They're going to be in their next presentation talking about the department goals they've created to address any whole scale or wide, potential areas that we want to look at as a district. All right, so at this point, Mrs. Caruso, Mrs. O'Hagan, and I would like to introduce, and I think Mrs. Walker is going to join us. We would like to introduce our impressive team of directors and supervisors that constitute the curriculum office, student activities, as well as the Department of Special Education. So I'll ask them all to come up and I'll quickly introduce them. And at this time, they're going to share with you. They don't usually all get to come as a team. So, yeah.
There's only so much room. You gotta stand by me because you're
You can certainly read some of these bullet points behind me. I don't want to bore you by repeating them. But I think the main theme that Mrs. Walker and I wanted to impress before each one of them goes into their individual areas that they're focusing on this year based on different data points that we assess, not just student academic, not just standardized assessment. These directors and supervisors also look at attendance reports, AP class enrollment, all different forms of what we call multiple measures of how we assess student achievement and the effectiveness of our programs here in Middletown, and how we continually strive to do better, and to do better really for our students, to ensure that they are college and career ready and ready for the workforce that they will be entering. For some of our students, as kindergartners and first graders, the jobs that they will be going into in 20 to 25 years don't even exist. So we know that we have to be on the forefront of any trends in the economy, in the job market, and in the world globally. So our directors and supervisors have very vast responsibilities, including the supervision of staff, specialists, outside consultants, doing evaluations on different staff members, writing curriculum, working with curriculum committees to do revisions, analyzing data. They are the leaders in our professional development, the creation of professional development, as well as all of them deliver professional development throughout the year to different staff members. They also work in concert with our building administration, supporting them in their school goals, their specific needs, in the rollout of interventions, in the creation of intervention plans. You'll see some of them will talk about our newest initiative, which is our Gifted and Talented initiative, to meet the needs of different types of learners on a different end of the spectrum. They work in concert with the building administrators and the teachers to roll out those initiatives. And they also work with our community partners, like the Bayshore Community Success Center and Lifelines and different colleges and universities, and securing dual enrollment opportunities for students so they can earn college credits while here in high school in Middletown. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to each one of them to talk about, they're not going to read, you can certainly read behind them to get a full understanding of their job and their role, but they're specifically tonight going to talk about their initiatives moving forward this year and the main goals that they've set in collaboration with their district director and myself and Mrs. Walker, who they work closely with.
Hi, I'm Jessica Shaw. I am the Director of Staff Development and Special Projects. Most of what you see up here probably can be categorized as a special project. The newest special project that I'm kind of co-chairing with some other people that will speak about it is the Gifted and Talented Initiative, which we will be rolling out a pilot this year. And my office facilitates the data analysis component of it because my office also facilitates the use of Linkit within the district. So that's kind of a natural marriage between, data analysis and identification of students for this initiative and this pilot, utilizing multiple measures that we are fortunate now to have housed in the Linkit system, as Mrs. O'Hagan had said earlier. The largest initiative that is running out of my office this year is our staff development initiative. We are very fortunate that we've been able to successfully set up a very personalized professional development platform for our staff members. As you may know, teachers are the #1 influencer of student success in the classroom, and it is our responsibility to provide them opportunities to grow in their capacity as educators. But just like we personalize learning for our students, we have to personalize for our adult learners as well. So we have really started to shift the mindset in this district in regards to teachers taking autonomy for their own professional learning by providing them structured supports and opportunities and choice. We talk about personalized learning, we talk about choice, pace, and place, and we're trying to meet those needs for adult learners because if we grow their capacity, that can only have a positive impact on our students. Our first day is coming up, October 18th, and Kim, if you wouldn't mind clicking on that link right there, just that, yes. We have, for October 18th, now this is a 1-hour session being held after school. We have 100 professional learning sessions that we're offering, which is so impressive given that they're being facilitated by people within our district. This is not something we went outside for. These are our teacher leaders. These are our administrative teams. These are groups of teachers getting together to do organic, innovative things and have real, true PLC discussions that a lot of them were self-started, self-motivated. 785 teaching staff members as of the other day were enrolled in a session selection. We have a 3-tier time schedule. We're running 3 consecutive schedules to accommodate middle, elementary, and high school. We are having events at 5 different buildings. 75 teachers are participating in webinars. 24 are involved in book studies. 51 teaching staff members stepped up as teacher leaders to facilitate sessions. And we have 9 administrators presenting during this session. We have 3 more that we're mimicking during the course of the year, and hopefully, these numbers will continue to grow. But I think for our first time, this is a really impressive, turnout. We also have developed a paraprofessional series. We'll be offering training and, professional learning to our paraprofessionals over the course of 7 sessions during the year. We have over 200 available seats on each given day, which helps them to grow in their capacity to support our students and our teaching staff. And then finally, we have a secretarial complement that will occur during the year as well. So that really is the major focus coming out of my department this year. That's it. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Lindsay Fox. I'm Director of High School Operations, so I work between both high school north and south. Last year, we revised the attendance policy and developed a summer credit recovery program for students who exceeded the number of allotted absences during the school year. That program had a positive impact on student attendance. After the implementation of the tiered intervention system that we have for the attendance, the number of chronically absent students between the 2 high schools decreased last year from 494 students down to 368. This year, I'm continuing to target that chronic absenteeism by working collaboratively with building administrators, identifying trends, and to revise the attendance review procedures. This year, we have developed a centralized ARC committee that we held at the district level that will include both building level and district level administrators, as well as student support services. This new ARC meeting will be held after school to allow parents the opportunity to come in and be present and have a more active role. Sometimes it's difficult for parents to attend during the school day because they are working. So we're going to be working closely with the parents to help them address their child's needs as well at that time. Additionally, I'm going to be supporting college and career readiness by promoting awareness and participation in student organizations within the high schools. We're going to be holding a co-curricular fair during advisory and lunch at both high schools. Another promotional piece of this is in coordination with the TV production students. They're going to be going out and filming our clubs and co-curriculars as little infomercials, so they're going to be able to highlight what the clubs have to offer and any other initiatives that they have during this school year. And again, the clubs are always represented at 7th, 8th grade open houses, 9th grade orientation, and always at back to school night. And a really fun thing that we're doing this year, and really looking forward to it, is that we're in the process of developing guidelines for students to have them, allow them to earn a varsity letter by competing in interscholastic competitions with other schools. So to continue to keep our students safe and healthy, we're creating opportunities to educate stakeholders by creating a Safe Schools panel discussion. In turn, we're hoping that this is going to reduce the instances of vaping and substance abuse within our school and the community. This will be reinforced throughout the school year by PSAs and also reinforced during our Rude Awakenings program, which we hold in conjunction with the Middletown Police Department. Also working collaboratively with our school security supervisor, we are planning on creating a high school security audit. This is going to focus on the physical premise, the security plan, and the management system by identifying any growth or area of improvement, and then we're going to be creating an action plan for that.
Hi, I'm Angela Mero, the supervisor of elementary curriculum and instruction. In the elementary schools, we are really working on some initiatives to promote personalized student learning, and with that we continue our professional development with the workshop model for reading and writing instruction. The workshop framework really provides the outlet for that personalized learning, and in that area we focused a lot on building lab sites to promote professional development so that we can stay in-house and learn from one another. Last year we scheduled about 80 lab site visits across the 12 buildings, K through 5. This year we're looking to have it being held more on a needs-based initiative, so that way we can look at what teachers really need and set them up to go see lab sites that will service that need. So for example, there was one teacher who has set a goal for herself to explore different tools to have her students be able to communicate to their families what's going on in instruction in the classroom and really engage those families in what's happening in her room. And so she is scheduled to go and visit a lab site in another building where a teacher has already figured out great ways of engaging her parents in the instruction going on in her room. And so we've aligned these two teachers together to now talk with one another, observe each other, and debrief and share ideas. And that's the way we will set up the lab sites going forward for this year in an effort to promote a long-term culture building where teachers have their classroom doors open to one another all the time so that they can continue to learn from one another. Also this year, I have worked with the special education department to build lab sites in our resource rooms and LLD rooms. So that way we have a very good mix of teachers who can open their door and service the needs of their colleagues. Along with workshop, we have also continued to build robust libraries for our students so that students can continue to read choice books. And through this choice, teachers are noticing a really great enthusiasm for reading, and the motivation of their students has just been lifted because kids have access to books that are really of interest to them and books that they feel comfortable reading. We also are looking at data analysis, and we are using the Falcus and Pinel benchmark system to target the needs of our students. We have rolled this out now up to 3rd grade, and our teachers are becoming more comfortable with administration of that assessment, and so now we're looking into the area of data analysis. Why do we give this assessment? What does it show us? What can we do with the information that it gives us? And so our professional development is focused on
child study team. One of the initiatives that I'll be working on this year is being more proactive as a district regarding mental health. So what we've done is we've created a mental health board that consists of 40 mental health professionals in the district. So that includes school psychologists, school social workers, student assistance counselors, school counselors, and social behavioral support specialists. Everyone's coming together on a voluntary basis in order to promote academic achievement for all students and create a healthy school culture. So the different committees that the staff will be working towards will be to research, to integrate more positivity into our schools and our buildings in general through social emotional learning, psychological first aid, the Lifelines curriculum. I've been working with Mrs. Orozco and her phys ed staff. It's a suicide prevention curriculum that promotes a competent and caring school community. And also working towards becoming trauma-informed school district, which is really being trauma sensitive, understanding what the needs of our students are in order to work to keep the students engaged and learning in a healthy environment. Additionally, this year, I'll be providing opportunities for professional growth, working alongside the special ed administration, the content directors, and building administration for growth in order to create IEPs that are skill-centered and emphasize personalized learning and promote student independence.
Good evening, I'm Sharon Timmons, I'm the Director of Special Class Programs. I oversee the autism, multiply disabled related services and preschool programs in the buildings throughout the district. So this year I have the wonderful opportunity to work with the directors and supervisors to incorporate the different literacy programs. So really driving the teachers and having the knowledge base to understand literacy programs within the programs while aligning district goals to meet the personalized learning needs of each of the individual students. So they will be using programs such as Dreambox, Reading A to Z, Science A to Z, and Foundations, and also using linguistics as needed, depending on if it's the readiness of the student or not. We are on our second year with the autism program, with the partnership with Monmouth University, and we are working with the autism program improvement project. So the BCBAs, we have 2 BCBAs in districts at the secondary and elementary level, and they're trained as coaches, and they go in and they video model with the teachers, and they provide professional development. So the teachers identify an area, one of the evidence-based practices, which I encourage you to look at later on tonight or tomorrow when this presentation is available, to look at each of the areas that they identify they want to work on, and then the BCBAs and the teachers collaborate together and work to improve those practices within the building. So it's done weekly, so it's not like they're going to a workshop and they're stopping there. It's a constant communication and a work together kind of philosophy to improve their practices.
Hi, I'm Danielle Schreck. I supervise special ed instruction, K through 12. That includes in-class support, pull-out resource, and LLD classes. I think the biggest part of my job is really collaborating with the content directors and supervisors. We do a really great job of working together to really going through the data that was presented and really coming up with unique and specialized learning opportunities for our students across K through 12 and across all the content areas. As Mrs. Kransky said, one of the big initiatives from our department is the new Frontline IEP program. We just switched from TINET to Frontline. All of our teachers have been trained in September, and we have a whole plan for this year to continue support with them at each level. We're going to work with child study teams to also help them support the teachers within the buildings. But we're, again, looking at the data in order to create these IEPs, in order to create measurable and more specific goals and objectives that correlate to the student's specific individual needs. Like Ms. Marrow said, part of the lab site initiative from last year, we're very excited. We're going to be opening up some lab sites in the researching classes as well the teachers have already started asking, when can we get this started? And I said, well, right after they're finished with all of their assessments, they're doing all their FMD assessments and all of the data, so now we're going to get those started within the next month. Something else I want to focus on this year is looking at our high school assessments and data, really in our resource room and LLD classes. So in the middle school, my teachers have really said how it's been beneficial, the information that they retrieve from the iReady and how they use that data in order to drive their small group and individualized instruction. And so that's something that some of my high school teachers have been saying. So with conjunction with Mrs. Van Glon, we're going to proceed through and really see if that's something that we want to move in that direction with supporting the teachers. They'll get provided training, and then we will work with them to analyze the data and then work on the small group instruction. And then, as I said before, just ongoing articulation to facilitate different professional developments throughout the district.
Hi everyone, I'm John Kerrigan. I'm the Director of Math K-12. We have a lot going on in math this year. Three main priorities are the implementation of the new middle school mathematics curriculum. I stood up here last year a couple times talking about Big Ideas Math. Now it's here. We've been working on training the teachers and making sure it goes off without a hitch. So this year we'll be looking at data related to Big Ideas, and as Ms. Shaw mentioned before, we use the Lincoln platform, so that enables teachers and administrators to really mine down and see how well students are performing and the gains that they're making. So we will continue to ensure that the new curriculum goes off really well for your students. We also have another big curriculum project this year. We are in the process of piloting 2 programs for Algebra 1. We're piloting Big Ideas, which is the same as a middle school program, and we're also piloting Envisions, which is a Pearson product. So we have teachers in each building, in the 3 middle schools and the 2 high schools, who are piloting each platform with their classes. So they're doing a block with one platform and a block with another. And we have ongoing discussions and meetings, and we make lists. We try to research as much as we can because it is such an important graduation requirement and the foundation for all future math courses. So this is a big priority for the math department this year. And we'll make a decision toward the end of this year and start writing the curriculum to be in place for next year. And the last one will be continuing emphasis on college and career readiness by implementing active learning classrooms. If any of you are on Twitter, you might have seen some math teachers tweeting out about active learning. It's something that I'm really, my heart isn't in 100%. A lot of universities are having active learning classrooms for students, so I want to be able to send our students out to those universities so they can seamlessly fit in to that kind of climate. What active learning is very engaging, hands-on, and inquiry-based. So instead of a teacher standing at the board for 80 minutes, it's more small group work, projects, things like that. They will still get taught, of course, but it's more active and engaging for students. And part of that involves pineapple charts. If you've also been on Twitter, you might have seen pineapple references. So our teachers are having a little fun with that. It's an initiative I learned about where teachers basically have an open door. A pineapple is a symbol of hospitality. So they welcome other teachers to come into their classrooms and observe a good practice being used in action. So anyone could come in as long as the teacher has the pineapple on the door and specify when they want people in their classroom. And it's catching on like wildfire. If you walk through some of these buildings, you'll see pineapples everywhere. So I'm hoping we can continue that process of professional learning and spreading the word about active learning. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Cindy Baglon. I'm the supervisor of ELA K-8, K-12. Actually, remember, it's not K-8, it's K-12 now. I'm excited to also speak a little bit, not about pineapples, but how we've implemented a workshop model of instruction that definitely banks off of what Mr. Kerrigan was talking about with the pineapples, because it definitely sets teachers up. Like Ms. Merrow talked about the lab sites, to be able to visit each other's classrooms and to really get into the heart of that work. And that work is really important because it does support our district initiatives with personalized learning and drilling down with data to really understand where we need to move our students in the literacy instruction. And I want to thank the board for approving a middle school curriculum that I had a team of teachers work diligently to really produce to meet not only the workshop model of instruction, but aligned with the New Jersey Student Learning Standards. And all the missing links that we did drill down with that data to determine on what our students absolutely need in literacy instruction in order to be ready for high school. So the teachers spent a lot of time last spring, actually the 6th grade teachers started even earlier in spring, really working hard. And this year, we're implementing that. So a big focus for me is to work with those literacy coaches to get down and support the teachers with doing that work and making sure that students have the opportunity to set those goals that Ms. Pekas talked about earlier in her presentation, because we know that when students are setting goals, they're holding themselves accountable, which also turns into student practice, and the more students practice with the work that teachers are giving them and providing the lens into, the more automaticity that they start producing in their own work and work ethics. So that's, I'm very excited that we have the literacy coaches in the middle school as well. I am in support of them. I help facilitate, and we also look at data to support teachers. And this year, thanks for the, again, the board and all of you, to give those literacy coaches the opportunity to get in and do support the teachers in the work that they're doing with workshop as well, so that we can move into what Ms. Merrill and I support in the elementary schools, with the workshop model in classrooms and the lab sites. This year we're looking at what classrooms that we can promote so that we can have that opportunity for teachers to pass through one another's classrooms and see how they're working, and then work with each other to actually do like lesson studies and to like develop that professional learning that they need in order to support the work that students are doing. And it lines up with what Ms. Shaw talked about with our professional learning hub, because then we have teachers who are stepping up to help facilitate those workshops that are also helping blend and weave in the instruction teachers need to build their capacity. And then I also am this year looking at this supporting teachers in the high school to look through a lens that are developing more student-centered, personalized environment in the English classroom and moving them towards best practices that might not be workshop, but are using elements so that there's less teacher-driven instruction and more student voices and students being able to do the work, because all research proves that the more practice students are doing, the more talking the students are doing, the more transfer of the strategies and skills that teachers are supporting in their instruction. So those are like two big things that I'm really working on this year, and it's exciting because I'm seeing teachers do it. I walked into a high school classroom the other day at South, and I saw this teacher put up her hand, like they listened to a TED talk about hands and about how this one person related their lives and things that they were doing with the touch of their father's hands and all their experiences, their memories they had. And the teacher demonstrated how she traced her hand on the big whiteboard and then listed all of the ways she could generate ideas to write stories about her experiences. And the students then did that in their notebooks, and they were able to generate ideas that they can now move and start writing just like they would in a 5th grade classroom. But the thing is, the topics were much more advanced because kids can now make those connections. So it's nice to see that we have consistency that's building across all our buildings. I think it's amazing to see the work that teachers are doing, and I'm proud to be part of it. So thank you.
My name is Devin Orozco, and I'm the Director of Science, Health, and Physical Education K-12 for the district. So between the two departments that I oversee, there are always things going on. In science, I will say that there are a couple of different focuses that we're looking at this year. In the middle schools, what I realized after looking at some of the data is actually that with the new middle school schedule, we have 50% more time in science. So 50% more time in science for me is amazing. It means that there's a lot more opportunity for student-directed learning, for all of those inquiry activities,
and not only for the activities, but really for writing and communicating science. So one of our focuses in science, if you have children in the district, you've heard them use the word or the acronym CER, and they might roll their eyes or groan when they say it, but they are getting used to it and they're starting to embrace it, and it stands for Claims, Evidence, Reasoning, and what it does is it draws a nice parallel between how we have students analyzing evidence in their English classes to write about what they're learning in English, and now we're doing the same things in science. We're really trying to draw the literacy and science together to help students better communicate what they're finding and what they're learning about in their science classes. So that's the focus in the middle school science. In the high school science, the focus is still a little bit on the literacy in science, but also on providing students with those student-directed and that personalized learning. There are so many different things that students have questions on. So my challenge to the teachers this year has been allow your students to explore what they have questions on, because they usually, the students don't always get that opportunity. So that's where they're really focusing this year. And then in health and physical education, one of the things that we're focusing on, I keep using the word focus, this year is our partnership with the Monmouth, Mental Health Association, I think. And so they have worked with us to now use this Lifelines, it's a curriculum, but we're just implementing a few of their lessons into our health classes. And so we started doing Lifelines a little bit in our 9th grade classes last year. Lifelines is a suicide prevention curriculum, and they have 3 different parts, but I'm just focusing on the suicide prevention curriculum. What the lessons do is they help students really understand how to seek help when they need it or when a friend needs it. They identify factors and behaviors in their friends and in themselves. And what it really does is helps them identify trusted adults and who should we talk to. And so what we've been learning and what the research says is that we need to start doing this earlier than 9th grade. And it's, from a personal standpoint, it's kind of a sad reality, but it is the reality, and we want to make sure that all of our students then, are able to tap into those resources. So we're starting now with the pared down curriculum or lessons in the 5th and 6th grade classes this year. So it's not what the 9th graders are doing, but it's a very basic approach of, how do you know when something's wrong with a friend? How do you know when something is wrong with you? What does the word suicide mean, and why should we take it seriously and not, laugh about it when our friends mention it? And then if you are feeling, anything that you don't recognize as normal or okay, what adults can you talk to? So we now have a program for our 5th and our 6th graders. We'll be doing the same program this year. The 9th graders will continue to do the program that they started last year. And then we also now have a new set of lessons for our juniors and seniors, and it's a transitions program. So the idea is, now, especially for the seniors, you're almost out there, and maybe not living with mom and dad anymore, and maybe you're not still living in Middletown. Where are those community resources that you can reach out to? So we want to make sure that our students have all of the tools that they need to be successful in life after they graduate from here. So the question was, why is it not continued in 7th and 8th grade? And the answer is that we don't want to repeat the exact same lessons. So this year we're going to start with these 3 pieces, the 5, 6, because neither 5th or 6th grade have received it, the 9th, and then the 11th and 12th, and then we're going to see where it fits into our curriculum the best, and then if there are any other programs that we can use to supplement it so that we can do some more with our students in the 7th and 8th grade classes.
Hi everybody, my name is Chris Virginio. I'm the Director of Social Studies, World Language, and Business Education. So within the 3 departments we have a couple of things going on. Right now within the Social Studies department there are some what I feel are monumental shifts happening, not just here in Middletown with respect to social studies, but nationwide. We are seeing a massive emphasis, and you've heard it from some of my colleagues behind me, on the use of inquiry-based instruction, and that rings true in the world of social studies. We're in a digital age right now. Our kids have access to pretty much any piece of information they want within seconds. The idea that our social studies teachers here in Middletown need to spend time talking about dates and facts and times is really not what the kids need right now. What we are seeing is that there is a massive emphasis on skills rather than that content. We know that things have happened throughout history, but for the kids to look at it from their own lens, for them to draw conclusions based on evidence. Again, things that you've heard from some of my colleagues. So, when we talk about that, we could be talking about kids really thinking like historians, reading like historians, writing like historians, and drawing their own conclusions about what has happened in the past and how it's going to impact their future. It takes some minor subtleties. So right now, we're in the process of aligning our 6 through 8 curriculum, which is going to be brand new for September, to a national social studies framework called the C3 framework, which is short for College, Career, and Civic Life framework. Again, the purpose of that is to help develop our students into being more engaged citizens. We live in a very political time right now. Politics are at the forefront, and it is our responsibility as educators, especially in the social studies, to prepare our students to participate in our democracy, to formulate opinions on things and back up those opinions with evidence. And again, something that you've heard from some of my colleagues. So I'm in the process right now of working very closely with our 6 through 8 curriculum committee to align our new curriculum to that framework. At the same time, I am working very closely with our 9 through 12 social studies teachers to incorporate some of these inquiry-based activities into their classrooms as well. To give you an idea of something like that, one of our teachers at High School South recently had a model of the Rosetta Stone, which, for anybody that follows history out there, was essentially a stone that was found in Egypt that enabled historians and scholars to translate ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics. So this teacher brought it into the room, and rather than stand there and tell the kids, this is the Rosetta Stone, this is what it does, this is when it was discovered, they had the kids come up and take a look at it. What do you think this is? Where is it from? And that started generating questions. Well, I think it's this because I noticed this. So getting that inquiry mindset within those kids and generating that curiosity. And the last piece to that framework revolves around the idea of taking informed action. So they're drawing opinions on things that have taken place already. What parallels do we see in our modern world? And if you don't agree with some of these things that are going on in our modern world, what can you do about it as a citizen in the United States of America? So I'm very happy, I'm very excited, very passionate about it, and it's a big shift for us, and I'm really looking forward to getting more into it. Within world language, we recently pretty much revamped the entire 6 through 8 world language program. We were at a point where we were starting to notice through the data that a lot of our middle school kids were struggling a little bit with some of the content that they were learning with respect to the world languages. We, in concert with teachers and administrators, were able to kind of pare that down and create a world language program 6 through 8 that we feel is extremely appropriate for our middle school students. And we are very confident that in the long run it's going to have a significant impact on our high school program. And then last but not least, in business education, we are in year 2 of our business management and administration pathway at both high schools. So we are continuing to develop contacts within our surrounding communities to generate internship opportunities for our kids, make community connections. And this is the first year that we have the opportunity of bringing business education courses down to our middle school students, which is amazing to think about how many of us went through high school and college without too much in terms of personal, financial literacy. Now we have 7th and 8th grade kids that are starting to learn what it means to budget, how important that is in your grand scheme, really focusing on careers and career exploration. And we're excited to see where that goes.
Good evening, everyone. I am Steve Graziano. I am the Director of Fine, Performing, and Practical Arts here in our district. I'm very excited to talk about some of the initiatives we have and goals in place for this school year specifically. Among my supervising our teachers of the arts throughout the K-12 in our district, making sure that they are having student-centered activities for our students, continued personal choices in their lessons. Case in point, I saw a wonderful elementary congealed lesson today, which also is cross-curricular, and that is one of my other goals, to make sure that our students of the arts are well-rounded, teaching the whole student. that we will incorporate cross-curricular content in our actual curriculum in our arts classrooms. Lesson I speak of today, we had our tech specialist working with an elementary teacher, came across with a wonderful congealed activity where they were introduced to Google Maps. Students were able to research a wonderful personal space within themselves and a place they wanted to visit in the world outside of their own homes, which actually some of them did love to see their house first, moved on from there and went all the way to Belgium and places like the Bahamas, and then were able to create that space and then create their own sketch in color, and that's the culmination of what the activity would be. So those are some of the things that I'll be working with K to 12 as far as that, making sure that that continued student learning, personalized learning, and student-centered learning will be happening. Another exciting goal that I'll be working on this year is the opening of our first year, the inaugural year of our academies here at the high school. The academy is housed here this year, but it is a district academy. It is for our 9th grade students right now, and each year we'll be adding another grade level to it until we reach the 12th grade year. So obviously in 4 years, we'll hopefully have a full house. Some of the things we're doing for our students in our 9th grade academy for this year, during their transition period, this is a wonderful time for the students to be introduced to people of the fields for which they study or are studying in or focusing on, such as we had a guest speaker the other day, Mr. Corner. His child actually attends school here. He's an actor. He came in, he shares with the students his experiences. He actually wrote a book, and he talked about that. So there's so many things that the arts can offer our students, most especially, again, through our academy. That's what we're going to focus on. Not only are we bringing people to them, we're going to have experiences for our students outside of the school. We're looking to develop relationships. I have myself and Mrs. Morales are working with me on these goals as well. Developing relationships with Two Rivers Theater. We're working with those various theaters. I'm going to reach out to Algonquin, so we're doing that. Another thing which we're looking to hopefully put in place as sooner than later, which hopefully for next year, researching, expanding the academy with a dance track as well. Don't put your dance shoes on yet, but we're working on it. So I'm actually we're looking for a facility for the dance to take place, but also developing relationships with local artisans to see if we can help that come together. So thank you all for your time. And
Hi everybody, I'm Wendy Morales. I'm the supervisor of digital media arts and technology, and I am the last slide, so I will be brief. So as Mr. Graziano stated, I am working in collaboration with him on the new Arts Academy. The digital media arts track is the track that I'm responsible for, and that really encompasses TV, film, photography, and graphic design. We're going to be writing 2 new courses this year, coming up very soon, to offer our students for next year, which they themselves actually voted on and chose. We're really empowering the students of the Arts Academy to be a big part of this process of developing the Academy. Another very exciting initiative that I'll be working on in collaboration with 2 of my administrative colleagues is the new Gifted and Talented initiative in grades K through 6. And as we talked about before, our district goal is to personalize learning for all students, and that includes the gifted students as well. So when we speak about intervention, we're speaking about obviously providing enrichment materials for those students that need more. Our educational technology specialists will be facilitating this. Their expertise in personalized learning strategies and the many technology tools that can help personalized learning is going to be essential to this program. We hope to, we already have a lot of resources developed already in a Gifted and Talented resource bank developed by teacher leaders and ed techs over the summer. That's very hands-on, very aligned to different students' strengths and interests. And it will be a push-in program for the most part, occasionally a pull-out program when appropriate. So we're extremely excited about developing that this year and learning alongside the students and kind of going along with some of their, as I said before, what they're interested in. And in turn, that will help our classroom teachers see how to differentiate for the higher level students as well. And of course, our ed techs and library media specialists are also focused on personalized learning for all of our students. We know technology changes so rapidly. I didn't even get that new iOS update yet because every time that happens, I don't know how to work my phone anymore. And we know that this is something that we think our students are digital natives because they're used to this, but we know they know how to text and how to do social media, but do they really understand educational technology? And that's why our ed techs and librarians are so important to really coach our teachers and our students in ensuring that we're up to date in the latest technology. So we're going to be continuing to work on specific goals such as research skills, interest-based learning, coding. We were just at Google last week with some of our students, and they kept reiterating how important it is, even if you do not go into a technology field, to know basic programming. So we're going to be working with as young as kindergartners on that to ensure that all of our students, again, get a chance to experience this. And of course, this will all give us the evidence we need for our next level Future Ready New Jersey certification, which is a state-supported initiative. And of course, we got silver certification this year, so we're hoping to continue with that. And the middle of that, the heart of that program is personalized learning. So, fingers crossed for that. Thank you.
So, as you know, over the summer, our Board of Education worked in collaboration with administration to revisit our district's 5-year strategic plan, identify areas where we still needed to grow or achieve completion with certain components of that 5-year strategic plan, and set forth and develop our year's district goals based off of that strategic plan. And each of the areas and initiatives and projects, professional development related, curricular related, social emotional support, special education, student activities, goals that the department directors and supervisors shared tonight are all in support of and connected to very intimately those district goals as well as our strategic plan.
I just want to thank everybody for the time that you took to come here tonight and present to us, and also to educate the community members that are here. I don't think often enough the community understands what everybody does in their position and how it truly benefits our children, so thank you so much.
Go noodle. Break? You need a break?
Okay, now we're going to move on to technology.
The first one is our technology intern trip to Google New York City. This past Thursday, we actually had a trip to Google New York City. It was a unique learning opportunity for our students from the state. They had an opportunity to speak with Googlers on every topic related to Google's mission, their philosophies, to write at Google. They actually had a very good conversation about college readiness, and career goals. Right now, we're currently trying to recruit some of those interns to come speak with you at the next board meeting, so they can actually share their experience, because they're much more excited to hear from them than from me. But we're in the process of trying to get a couple of them out.
Thank you. It looked really exciting when they were tweeting out.
Yeah, we tried to tweet out some things. Google is very adamant about not taking pictures in certain locations, so we have to be very careful what we did tweet out. The second item is the district internet bandwidth upgrade. This past summer, we upgraded one of our circuits from 1 gigabyte to 3 gigabytes. We are in the process of upgrading our second circuit next week from 800 megabytes to 3 gigabytes. We'll bring it to 6 gigs across the district from 1.8. It's over a 300% increase. This increase is necessitated because of the amount of devices we have on district and just the amount of total data that our students are pulling and using on a daily basis. The nice part about this upgrade is because we did it through the E-rate bid system, we were able to facilitate this upgrade and actually save the district about $1,000 per month on a bill. Dyno. Last spring we ran a Dyno pilot in a few of our secondary schools. For those of you who are not familiar with Dyno, it's a classroom management tool that allows our teachers to access the student Chromebooks in their classroom. It allows them to keep students on task and basically control their devices as needed. So this spring, this September, we now implemented it in grades 3 through 12, our one-on-one program. So teachers will now have a tool that allow them to collaborate with students. For example, they'll be able to share their screen with 30 to 20 students in the classroom. The access, or they can even block the student altogether if they're intentional Chromebooks or something. The initial reports back to teachers, they love it because now they have more control of what the students are actually accessing in their classroom. I have an update for the Securely Parent Portal. As you're aware, Securely is what we use for our internet filtering system. Last year, we rolled out the Parent Portal, which basically allowed our parents to get a weekly report of what their students were accessing on their Chromebooks. They also had the ability to go to the web and manipulate some of the settings for home usage. Securely is now offering the ability to do all this to an app. The app is available on our website under technology, and we will link it to the main page. So now a parent can see in real time where the student is accessing on their Chromebook, whether they're at home or in school. They'll also be able to still receive those reports. Those reports are going to be more streamlined, and that'll redirect those parents to the app or the web portal. But now parents will have a more real-time, more accurate representation of where the students are accessing. The last item I had on the voting agenda, we were requesting approval of the purchase of a Microsoft license, SHI. It's covered under state contract. This is still licensing we renew every year. It covers software from Microsoft for all of our existing desktops we still have for the district. It covers licensing for Office and Microsoft Suite for all staff and students. And it also covers licensing on all of our servers, which at this point we still have over 100 still in the district. Questions?
Thank you so much. Mr. Dunn's also going to cover our student services meetings that we had this month.
We had a meeting on October 3rd. We're going to be projecting 27 students for home instruction, 3 students for out-of-district placement, 1 student for a continued out-of-district placement. We're also going to be recommending a new school physician, Dr. Joel Janone. He'll be reviewing home instruction and school physicals at a rate of $200 an hour. Currently, Dr. Lunsky's kind of stepped aside for right now. We're also going to be requesting an independent FDA for one of our students. And then we have our 3 settlement agreements. We also talked earlier this summer, our department is going to do a presentation on autism for parents. We're looking at November 15th. We're looking at it to do it around 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock. And we'll discuss instructional strategies, behavioral management, parent training, and parent supports. At our committee meeting, we talked about our new IEP program. We also talked about the lifeline suicide prevention. We also discussed the mental health board that our department's looking at formulating. Mr. Ransky spoke about. And by the way, Ms. Simmons will be doing the presentation on autism, along with our VCBAs, Ms. Beekman and Ms. Simmons.
And we'll be inviting our staff and parents.
All our sending a flyer. We'll be sending a flyer to all the principals as well, and we'll be posting on the websites. Okay. We're also going to be looking at the brewer crew and creating that again with Whitson's. We're actually going to be meeting with them on Thursday morning. We're also talking about our structured learning sites, and also some of the professional development that we're doing with teachers.
And on the positive note, with the parent meeting, we have a lot of positive feedback from Friends of Diverse Learners. They changed their name to collaborate with another group, and it's a good thing. They're grateful to all the PTAs and PFAs for supporting them and sending their information out through Facebook and website pages. They're going to look back into starting the website for parents where you could post positive comments about things that are going on with teachers or things in the classroom or the district's doing, so that there's a lot more positive input out there. So it was a very productive meeting, and we have another one coming up in November. Thank you. Okay, curriculum.
Okay, so we already did our previous presentations, and at this time I would like to call up or ask to come up Mrs. Wilson, Principal of Ocean Avenue School, Mrs. McCormick, Principal of Fort Monmouth Elementary, Mrs. Adams and Mrs. Tapalo, as well as Mrs. Merrow and Ms. Timmons, to talk about a joint pilot initiative that the building administrators, the curriculum department, the special education department, and student activities have programs is developing a pilot proposal to meet the needs of some of our youngest, most neediest, quite honestly, students. So I'll turn it over there.
I feel like we need a brain break.
I know.
And everybody should stand up and shake or something. But thank you for having us tonight. And I think conversations start when you're in the throes of working in the building. I am Cindy Wilson. This is my 10th year at Township School. I had the pleasure of working alongside these very smart and talented people and a great administration and a great district. So being in the building for 10 years, you start to see trends, and it's no surprise to us that our mental health issues are becoming of concern. And we're seeing it in our youngest populations. We're seeing it in our youngest learners. They're showing up for school and they're not available to learn because of social emotional incompetence or lack of, or self-regulation skills. So we start to question, like, why is this happening? What are we seeing? Where is this coming from? And I know that Maureen and I are in the lower socioeconomic schools, and a lot of those could be lack of preschool experiences, lack of exposure to extracurricular activities where we engage with our kids, just life stressors, trauma. These children are coming into our classrooms, they're not available to learn. They lack the social emotional competence and the self-regulation skills. And those two are kind of constructs that kind of overlap and really help create build you up for academic success. If you're coming into school and you're not available to learn, we could stand on our heads and do flip-flops all day, and they're not getting it. So we're dealing with behaviors that are not necessarily organic. These children are not necessarily, have a learning disability or an organic, disability that's preventing them from being available to learn. It's just that they lack some basic self-regulation skills and emotional. So I talk about being able to manage their behavior, their feelings, having a lack of trust for the adults in their life, not being able to form friendships, not knowing how to resolve social conflict. These children are in our classrooms these days, and it creates it's just a, what do I want to say? Jump in. It's a struggle for them, and it's a struggle for the students that are available to learn. And it's a struggle for the teacher in that classroom. And yes, we do want to personalize learning, and we do want to, and we're doing great things with our students. However, I spend a lot of time in kindergarten classrooms, my SBSS, and thank you for putting full-time social behavior support specialists in our schools because they are so needed, especially in the building that we are at. I could not do the job I do without the support of Dr. Adams and my whole staff in general, but they are a much needed, support person in the building. Christy Kane supports Maureen. Jump in, add anything you want to add, but it's really a concern. And I called Kim and we had a conversation, and I said we have to think about what we can do. Is there a way we can look to pilot some type of program where we can keep the end of the kindergarten standards in place, modify the program, so we're doing our kindergarten curriculum, but we're building in some time for people to come in and support conflict resolution. Bring these kids to a place where they can learn. And I'm not talking about our young learners or our younger students, because they actually are doing fine in our building. So it really it crosses all barriers. It doesn't matter how old you are. It's just the stressors that our youngest students are bringing to the classrooms with them. So I just feel like it's important enough now to look at it and to see what we could do, and if we could pilot it for a year or 2 years, possibly 3, to see what kind of results we get, and just to offer some.
Can I jump in for 1 second? So that's okay, you're on a roll, you're going. It's funny because we were thinking about what it is we wanted to say, and I said, you just need to talk from our heart, because we, this all kind of came from an organic experience of just observing. As educators, that's what we do. We do, a big part of our day is observing our students, and based on our observations, we gear how it is that we're going to teach and approach that student. And we identify needs, and we identify the skills and the abilities of each of the students, and we identified some needs in some of our youngest learners coming in. And I'm new in Middletown, this is my second year here, but the percentage has been increasing of the number of students that are coming to kindergarten without those basic social skills. And you cannot tap into the academic skills if these students are not able to socially attend. So that's kind of where the brakes were put, and we kind of, and I have to say, just even listening to all the directors and the supervisors, I wish I lived in Middletown because I want my children to be part of this district. We had a need, we expressed a need, everyone powwowed, and here we are. So it's a proposal that we're putting out there to get feedback with the goal of helping some of our neediest and youngest students. Because if you set the foundation for success in kindergarten, they're just odds they'll succeed. So there's a need, there's a real need here, and that's kind of why we all came together with all our different areas of expertise to figure out how to best support them and give them what they need.
So in about a week's time, and I don't want to leave out Mrs. O'Hagan because she was sitting over there, but she was also part of this very smart team, not including myself. I'm taking myself out of that. But this smart team of people who came together because we do have an immediate need in our district. There are numerous students across our 12 elementary schools in our kindergarten programs who are not able to be successful in their current environments for one reason or the other, and many of which already Mrs. McCormick and Mrs. Wilson have attested to. And it's not only compromising their own academic, experience, but the experience of their peers whose academic experiences are being compromised because of the disruptions or the delays in teaching because the teacher is attending to either tantrums or meltdowns or other types of behaviors that students in stress who are 5 years old exhibit because they don't have verbal skills or language skills to say, I need help. They just know to have a meltdown.
Right, and their rigors are being put upon them now, coming in as their first experience often.
So, with that being said, they're referring to a pilot, and what we're looking to do in coordinated efforts with the Department of Special Education, Mr. Dunn has also been involved in these conversations, and Mrs. Timmons, is we have a budgeted position that we have not filled at this point that was reserved for needs that would come up during the course of the year that historically do for special education. In the past, the only tool in the toolbox that a lot of elementary principals used to have when these kindergartners who are really unknown to us when they start school. We can't really predict these types of issues because we don't know these students, as we can predict the IEP needs or special ed department needs of known students, in the spring when we're looking forward to what type of staff or programs we may need for existing K-11 students, is to utilize this position in a proactive way, not wait for students to be referred, because the only option right now that principals have is refer these students eventually to child study teams or to the Office of Special Education and wait to see if for some reason they are eligible for services, which may or may not even be warranted, because as Mrs. Wilson already indicated, oftentimes these behaviors are masked or they present as a special need issue, an organic issue, when really they're not. They're more social, emotional, or developmental in nature. So we're looking to utilize this position to create a what we're tentatively calling an integrated kindergarten classroom, where we would have a small teacher-to-student ratio maxed out at about what our current preschools run at, which is about 12 to 15 students is what our thinking is, to put these students in with a teacher who has experience in working with early literacy, early childhood, early mathematics curriculum, because they would be following our traditional kindergarten curriculum. It would not be an additional year for these students. They would still be taught their kindergarten standards, but in a different way. And we would also include the support services of the SBSSs, our social workers, our school psychologists, our reading development teachers, our math specialists, to meet these students' first social emotional needs and behavioral needs so that they can be ready to learn, and then also very purposeful small group instruction to introduce skills at an appropriate pace. That does not create an overstress or an overdemand, which oftentimes triggers these behaviors that we're seeing. So with that, I'm going to let Dr. Adams and Mrs. Tepelo kind of take it from there, from the social emotional perspective, and how they, as social behavior support specialists and their colleagues, can support these students.
Sure. Yeah. So after we identified the need, we really dove into the research aspect of the social emotional learning and the necessity that children need to have these self-regulation skills in order to be available to learn. So what we want to do is introduce these skills, help children develop these skills, and then help model those skills within the classroom.
helping to identify when they have conflict in the classroom or something doesn't go the way that they want it to go, how we can support them with working through that problem, the problem solving. Small kids, small problems, big kids, bigger problems. So we want them to have those problem solving toolbox so that as they get older and they face these bigger issues, they can kind of have the tools to use more readily. So we're finding, like, as they come in as younger kids, the research really has supported that if they're lacking these social emotional readiness skills at the age of 5, when they get into high school, they're still experiencing these academic problems. They have peer rejection issues, social emotional issues, and increased dropout rates. So if we can address this at the beginning level and really, like we said, build that toolbox so that they can address these problems as they become larger, then ideally we'll start to see some of these things disappear. Ideally.
And just to piggy off of what Dr. Adams said, there is a lot of extensive data in this area to show that a lot of these behavioral aggressive type students, that again, it's not because they don't want to be available to learn, it's just they don't have the ability. A lot of them are being rejected by their peers, and it's happening in the earlier school years. Later on, they're at a higher risk for learning deficits, for other difficulties across the span. And there's, like I said, a lot of data to show that if you get in there early and start giving them the resources and the different strategies that they can utilize, that there's a higher success rate for them in the future.
And so now that we've recognized this need, we started to talk about what can we do to address it. And some of the things that we'd like to explore are how can we integrate this education in social and emotional, that type of curriculum, into a curriculum that meets the New Jersey Student Learning Standards for kindergarten, so that we can still hold these kids accountable for where they need to be by the end of kindergarten, yet still prepare them for that social and emotional success. And with that may come a restructuring of their debt. We may have to look at the minutes allotment for different content areas and try and work in a little bit more of teacher modeling and those social situations where kids learn how to interact with one another. And then from there, we would take a look at ways that we can monitor the progress, not only of the individual students, but the program as a whole over time.
And kind of finally, just making sure that it's not an organic thing. It's maybe students may not be developmentally delayed, and individualizing a program to meet the individual needs of the students, and hopefully reducing those referrals to the special education department.
So this would not be a special education program. These students would not have IEPs. They would have SMART goal plans developed through the building principal in which this program would be housed, and the INRS team, including the SBSS and the classroom teacher, predominantly in conjunction with the parents. We're hoping that this reduces the amount of phone calls and interruptions that these parents are being placed upon when their student is not able to attend or function appropriately in the classroom, and they become a safety risk to themselves or others, or they've compromised the learning environment to the degree where they have to be removed. We're hoping this can be a positive thing for those families as well. We would also introduce workshops and training for the parents on how to also support their student in developing the skills that 99.9% of our kindergartners are able to come and ready to use in our classrooms in September. And again, the point here is that this is not an additional year. It's not creating another year of school for these students, because they'll still be taught the kindergarten standards. So we're really, what we would be recommending to the board is the appointment of a person to this position, to this budgeted position, and working to identify the students who would be eligible. We will develop a criteria that we would work with all building principals and the SBSSs in each of our elementary schools to identify with parents appropriate students who could, needs could be met in this specific program.
I have a couple questions.
Yes.
I know you're going to identify the city, but do you have an idea of how many students, while you're putting this together, how many students that you have in mind already?
Yes, we have talked to all of the elementary principals. I would say on quick, because this is really coming out of about a week and a half worth of time. This is a fast moving, that's why we're coming here tonight and we're still on the precipice of this pilot. But we did not want to waste time for these students by delaying the launch. But in a quick conversation with principals, we have already easily identified at least 10, and possibly 10.
Do we have a space in the school for it?
Yes.
would we be busing students from all over to that
We would, but
program?
at the school where we're thinking there is space, there is already existing buses that come from across the district.
It's kind of like what we had years ago. We used to have a developmental kindergarten or a
Transition kindergarten. But that was an extra year,
Yeah.
you know, for those students. It
Yeah.
delayed their entry into first grade.
You know,
for these
I'm not
students.
saying
Yeah.
it's a bad thing.
That's the only difference.
I realize it myself, you know, I have a granddaughter who's 6 years old, and there's a lot of transition things that they go through, and, you know, I think we can help these kids
Again, it's a
now,
proactive idea.
and get them ready, so when they're going into first grade, they're, you know, caught up.
I just don't have a question, I have a statement. Over the summer and over this past year, I think we've been talking a lot about school safety and school security. And on this board and from this audience, actually I see a few people in this audience who have mentioned it, how we need to tie mental health into school safety and security. I commend you for coming up with this because the long-term ramifications of this, if it is successful, could really mean safer schools for all of our kids. So thank you.
It's been a concern because I've been doing this a long time, like 30-something years. I don't want to say it out loud, but it's proactive, not reactive. I mean, reactive is what they're used to all the time, is that quick reaction and that being punitive, and that doesn't help. That doesn't support that whole mental health piece. So, yeah, we need to do something. We and I can honestly look at my own and say these numbers are growing. I mean, from 1 a year to 2 to 3 to like 4. And I'm hands-on. I am a hands-on administrator. I'm in those rooms. I know those kids, and I am facilitating a lot of that conflict resolution along with Dr. Adams, modeling what that looks like.
But it's very difficult to do in an environment with 24 other students.
Yeah, right.
That's
So
very
going on.
that's already overstimulating for some of these more needier students. You know, again, 99.9% of our kindergarten students are very successful in our kindergarten programs with the demands that are placed upon them, with the compressed curriculum that has been launched by the state over the last couple of years. But for some, we feel like we're kind of inadvertently leaving them behind and not really addressing these more important issues. So we want to correct that.
Is there a chance that, because we're starting at kindergarten, that we're going to have a little catch up with first graders or second graders that are in the same situation?
Well, we're hoping to continue to move as quickly as we already have, which is our goal. It's an aggressive one, would be to have this program in place in December, so within the next couple weeks. So we don't think it'll be that much of a delay. Why we're looking at it as really a 2-year pilot, though, is because we won't have a full year worth of data to measure the success for these students. We also look at it as an opportunity to watch to see the data, how successful the students as they graduate to first grade are in that now setting, in that second year. And is this, do we need to tweak this configuration or our plan, or is it showing results that we would intend?
When you group these students together, which you would be pretty, what about second grade? Where did they go? First grade?
They'll
go back to their home school. Yes. Yep.
We really need to nurture that social emotional competence and that self-regulation. They don't have it. They just are lacking in some very basic, which typical kids, and 99% of them come in and have been in good preschool, high-quality preschool programs, and they come in with a little bit of an advantage. They know what that sharing, turn-taking, adult directive looks like. These kids appear to be non-compliant, and yet they don't have the skills to comply. And they haven't trusted a lot of adults in their lives. They haven't trusted a lot. And they don't respect. So you need to gain their trust first in building those relationships with them. Oftentimes they're very guarded.
But we've already thought about, I'm sorry, Ms. Don, but we've thought about how we already started talking about what that transition back to their home, their neighborhood school would look like, in the form of visitations in the spring, teachers coming over to meet with them, identifying who their teacher would be earlier than usual, so that we can also start to build in that natural relationship building with this teacher they would be with the following year. We've already talked, because we had that same concern. You know, what does that transition look like back?
What's the plan to get parent buy-in?
That's if it's presented with their child's best interest in mind, seriously, I think that these parents, the ones that we're not, they're already in the process of this. Some of the students that I'm already thinking about and Maureen are in the IRNS process. This is early in K for these kids to have been identified in an IRNS. Parents often want to help, but don't know how to go about getting it.
Or what it would look like.
Or what it would look like. So you're not going to get 100% parent buy-in, but if you can get half, then good for those kids.
And oftentimes, as a former elementary principal for many, many years, and I've had these similar experiences when I was in that role, oftentimes the parents of these particular types of students are experiencing these same issues at home.
Right.
And so they are not, oftentimes they are familiar, they may not look exactly the same, but we're seeing the behaviors in the classroom, but they're struggling themselves. And they don't know how to reach out, and provide. So they are oftentimes very willing to work with the school to try to support the student, because they know that there will also be incidental benefit in the home with the way that child interacts with their siblings at home. Because oftentimes once we start talking to these parents, they'll say, oh, I am seeing him hit his student a lot, his sibling a lot at home, or slap him, or tantrum, or break things, or not know how to take play and take turns. So
that's why the parent workshops are going to be important too.
Yes.
Follow through.
One more question. Are they going to have, 5-year-olds have the tendency to model behavior around them?
Yes.
Are you going to be working in collaboration with the other kindergarten teachers of Gen Ed kindergarten so they have other behavior to model?
Yeah.
Not just the kids in this
You want to
class?
talk also about the buddies, the older students also, as positive peer role models? Yes, and also older students in the school, 4th and 5th graders who can work to be positive role models. You bring up a good point. Oftentimes they will feed off of the behaviors that they observe in others. The point of this program is for the teacher to structure lessons where there's a lot of positive role playing between students that teacher is facilitating. So that they can see what good reaction to you losing a game looks like versus what poor reaction to you losing a game looks like. And the teacher modeling it, and then having students model it.
And I think another piece to that is really building that intrinsic reward system for the kids. So they have been previously rewarded with this bad behavior by getting parent attention, by getting the game they want, because the parent said, all right, whatever you want, I don't want to fight with you. So now as they start to get rewarded for positive behavior and pro-social behavior, it starts to build that intrinsic reward system. So they're more motivated to do those skills. So even getting that positive support from the adult staff in the room, I think will be huge and a key. But then bringing in those peer buddies and helping them, recognize those pro-social behaviors in their peers, I think will be really important.
The other piece to that is that I would imagine, because we really haven't vetted totally out, that these students would be integrated into the specials, and so maybe the support of the SESS would have to go into those special period times or recess where they're all together with their peers, so that again there's follow through on what we've modeled and what we're hoping to see.
Okay, so we're going to be, based upon what I'm experiencing and what I'm reading is positive feedback, reception to this idea. Our goal is to put out a posting to start recruiting a high-quality candidate to fill this position and start working with the building principals and the SBSSs to formally identify students and meet with parents to talk about the launch of it.
Any objections from anybody? No? Good luck.
We'll update you.
Come visit. Don't be afraid.
Last couple things from curriculum, just a public service announcement that we are going to be hosting our high school academy and pathway information fair for middle school students and their families earlier than what we did last year with the first year of doing that fair. We're doing a little bit earlier this year. It will be held on Wednesday, November 28th from 6:30 to 8. November 28th, that's what I have on here. Okay. From 6:30 to 8 o'clock at High School South. Information will be going home from the schools. And Mrs. Caruso is handing out the professional development under 150 list, correct, Mrs. Caruso, or is it the over? Under the $150 list.
Yeah, all will be on the voting.
And that's it from curriculum.
Thank you
I
so
think we
much.
have enough to say.
turf work or the grass work that we're doing with our turf consultant at the secondary schools, and we will be continuing that work into November as fall sports come to a close, and then into the spring as well. So the consultant feels that we are on track, that we will see definite improvements in the fields by spring, and we're already talking about next steps as far as continuing the improvements on those fields and what we need to do to maintain the work that's already been done, and looking at how that will be incorporated into our budget plan for next year. We are also in the process of getting proposals from our architects on the project that was in the budget for the high school north auditorium and lighting and sound upgrades. So we've received a proposal from one of our pool of architects, and we're waiting for the other one, so we will be evaluating those and determining how to move forward. And the next step after we decide which proposal we're going to go with would be developing a specifications package and going out to bid on that. We also have been dealing with some drainage issues for the fields at High School North. We have brought in an engineer to take a look at that and help us solve the issues. We did go over the pictures and so forth. We have some drainage lines that are deteriorating in the area of the field hockey field and going into the back of our property. So we have an engineer who will be able to draw up plans for us to remedy that and do the appropriate discussions with whatever permits we would need. But we do feel we can do the work in-house after the engineer draws up the plans, so we will be working on that. We have a temporary fix to that, but we have to come up with a permanent fix. We are also still working on the securing of the APR doors, the hardware. Unfortunately, we had ordered all the parts for our facilities department to start doing that work, and some of the parts that came in were not correct. They did not fit the hardware that we had, so we're in the process of getting replacements. As soon as we get those, we can start deploying our facility staff out to install those on the elementary APR doors. We also started preliminary discussions on our 1920 facilities budget. We were reviewing our plan that we had put in place a few years ago, the long-range facilities budget plan, as far as projects that were determined at that time to be priority 1, 2, and 3. We reviewed with the committee that we had already accomplished many of the things that were in priority 1. The main things that were in priority 1 that we hadn't touched upon and we will be reevaluating were parking lots and fire alarm systems, taking a look at seeing which ones, if those need to be upgraded. But a lot of the major work had been already accomplished over the last 3 or 4 years. We've been working on that. And so we will look at that, and also things that were in our priority 2 category, which include heating and cooling work in the elementary schools and some of the other areas, not the rooftop units or the geothermal systems, but some of the indoor heat pumps in the classrooms. That's an area of the phase system that we've been doing fixes on, but no large-scale work. We're also going to be looking at continued bathroom improvements. We are assessing the auditorium at North, and we were going to be doing the project for the lighting and sound, but we're considering some other things that may need to be done there, and some other maintenance projects in the buildings. But again, we're having very preliminary discussions on this, and we're still in the process of identifying things that we need to address in our next budget and budgets beyond that. We discussed the fact that at this point the district does not have a capital reserve to draw from. We are into a lot of the work that we're doing with the rooftop units and the lighting and so forth is all being self-funded through our ESIP program. So we will have to figure out how that's going to fit into our operating budget going forward, being that we don't have reserves or surplus to draw upon at this point. And I think that was about it, unless you want to add something, Mrs. Kennedy.
I think you were very
Try to go quick to make up
Okay, going into our finance, I'm going to let Nick give his shared service update because he is the chair of finance too, and then we can go right into that.
So we will do shared service.
Shared service and then finance.
Okay. So just a brief update on shared service. As the board is aware, we have a standing meeting with the township on a monthly basis. The meeting on October 9th was canceled by the Township on the morning of October 9th. The reason given was that other meetings had come up. It is a standing meeting. There was an agenda circulated. We had 4 topics on the agenda. We were planning to speak about the Class 3 Officers Pilot Program. As we're aware, we're looking to the Township to work out funding arrangement for that, as well as understanding the value of some of the services the Township offered to provide, or had initially offered to provide, and understand what the latest offer would be. The second item was the potential use of space at the Middletown Arts Center for district programs. Theoretically, we could use that space for something like a dance studio for the aforementioned arts program. That has to be discussed with the Township. Third item would be the use of schools for polling places. Again, working with our security initiative, we use all but I think 2 of our schools for polling places, our elementaries at least, as polling places. We'd like to talk to the Township as use of those facilities for polling places, as we're all aware, requires us to close school on election day. We know that calendaring and the length of the school year is always a topic, and so we're looking for ways not to get days away because we all want to enjoy the summertime. The Middletown Township Police Department does provide us a very good service at our district events. However, there is a surcharge charged by the police department on top of their hourly rate. We'd like to discuss with the Township where that surcharge goes and what can be done to maybe ease that surcharge. Again, understanding the financial position the district is in and looking forward. It's in the taxpayers' best interest that we have these conversations. There was only one agenda item that we anticipated coming from the Township, and that was something that Mr. Perry had brought up at the microphone at our last meeting, which was the use of fields at Bayview School. The potential, I think the word he used was takeover of those fields at Bayview School. So what we want to do is just talk a little bit about how that shared service works. The Township currently permits all Board of Education fields except our varsity turf fields at the high schools. The Township also collects all revenues from those permits. The Board of Education, as we're aware, does not take in any of those revenues. Now, we have seen some return in this relationship. We have a nice turf field at Nut Swamp. However, there are certain initiatives, such as a proposed turf field at Thorn and Harmony, that are stuck. We do believe that this agreement in general is worth reviewing and discussing with the Township. We want to make sure that there's a benefit to this agreement for both our residents, and that would come through the permitting for our sports leagues. We don't want to have our leagues go to 2 different bodies to permit. That doesn't make any sense at all. We also want to make sure that our students have well-maintained facilities, so we have to balance both of those interests. There is no proposal on the table for Bayview Fields. Nothing was brought to us besides Mr. Perry, who at the microphone indicated he was speaking as an individual and not speaking for the Township. And so we would welcome, and we've discussed this as a shared service committee, would welcome any proposal. We would look forward to a proposal from the Township so that we could discuss it. We believe the fields at Bayview do need some renovation and some work, and we would look forward to working with the Township. But as of right now, there is nothing in front of the Shared Services Committee that we can bring back to the board to weigh its benefits and work with the administration. At the end of the day, I believe, and our legal counsel can help with this, but I believe this is still an administration decision that they seek the board's counsel on, whether or not to release those fields and permit those fields. And that's how we move forward on past discussions of field use. We all remember the summer. And so we want to do that again for this next discussion. So the next meeting of the Shared Services Committee is scheduled for November 12th, but that's Veterans Day. The Township is closed that day. We are seeking to move, we're seeking to move that meeting to another day that week. And when we have a day confirmed, we'll come back and let the board know, and we'll also touch on the agenda. So, are there any questions from the board?
I think it's just important to mention that as the Shared Services Committee, we are very eager to work with the Township Committee And we are attending these meetings, and we have been working very well with the Township Committee. I think that's important to mention, so it doesn't seem like we don't want to meet with them. That's not the case at all. And there's some, there's some rumors going around that we don't want to meet with them. That's not true at all.
All right. If there's nothing on shared services, we're doing finance, I guess. So we had a finance committee meeting last night. We had it on the heels of facilities committee meeting. We covered 4 topics. The first, we just did a brief overview of the first quarter 18-19 reporting. Some brief highlights. It is early in the year. We only have 1 month of school time, another 2 months for summertime. Most numbers do look like they're planned. Looking at the electricity and lighting line items, they were budgeted with the ESIP project in mind, and so we're looking to see, and we'll be watching that as the year goes on, to see what our electricity outlay is now that we have these fancy solar panels upstairs. We also discussed a little bit a topic that's come up in the past, which would be a building-by-building breakout of costs. Amy explained to us that there are new audit requirements from the state that will require us to provide a building-by-building breakout of costs. That's something that we've been seeking in the past, and so I think that'll be helpful for us in our long-range planning. We discussed very briefly policy 9210, which is a fundraising policy for parent organizations. It requires the parent organizations to submit it's like a financial statement.
Revenue and expense summaries.
Right. We actually don't get a lot of compliance from that, with this from our parent organizations, nor do we do anything with the information. And so what we'd like to do in new business is bring up the possibility of the board reviewing this policy and either amending it so that we just get disclosure from the parent organizations that they are operating independently as a parent organization, and sort of getting out of the fiscal watchdog business for those words. We talked a little bit about health insurance updates. We had a brief update on our claims. Claims so far this year looks good. Brown & Brown would like to come in and give us a presentation on health insurance topics, including different alternatives as we look forward to our 1920 budget year. We were informed that there is a potential change in the risk corridors for self-insurance through Verizon. Brown & Brown did not have any numbers to share there, but they did want to come and give a presentation to the board, and we would be more than happy to hear from them.
Do we know when, Nick?
It would be, November or December? I think we were talking December.
We'd have to firm that up, but when it would be an appropriate time, because we already have to dedicate probably about an hour to that,
Yeah.
So will it be full board or
Yes.
just
Yeah.
a meeting?
No,
Full board, and probably a voting meeting, because that's got the shorter work, shorter business part, so we have a little more time in the beginning.
So we just need to decide, because I'll have to give them notice to keep the date on the calendar.
We will do, is December
We have
2
one
meetings?
meeting in December.
And we have
Right.
2 in
We
November?
have 2, but it's early. One's like the 5th and the
right
other's
after.
the
Oh,
12th or something. It's
Yeah,
not-
I have
I
it.
want to consider that in November, you might have
The 5th and the 12th.
3 new board members, who they would be intricate into the decision whether we go self-insured or not.
Yeah.
I don't think you're gonna make a decision that night.
No,
You're just
No,
gonna-
I'm just
that's a
throwing it
presentation.
out there, that
But it would
December's,
be good to have it, I think, at the December voting meeting, because then, the new members could absolutely come and attend and
Yeah.
get educated up.
Yeah, that would be the 12th of December.
Okay.
Yeah, let's do that.
I can check, make sure they're
And then the final agenda item, we had just a couple of quick hits from the business office. Amy, just correct me if I get any of this wrong. We have a new banking arrangement with TD Bank. We're actually earning interest on our bank accounts, and we're not paying heavy fees. So again, in the interest of the taxpayer, we are managing our money much more efficiently there. We have been able to auction off $15,000, $16,000 worth of surplus and used equipment through GovDeals auction. And we are working with our paras to modernize time reporting and get away from filling out the timesheets. So that's an ongoing discussion. And this,
That's
Okay, policy.
We have 2 policies that are on the agenda for the voting meeting as second readings that were reviewed last month. the disclosure review of applicants' employment history that ties in with the new pass the trash regulations, and also the use of physical restraint and seclusion techniques for students with disabilities. That's a mandatory policy that's been revised, so we'll have those on the agenda for a second meeting.
Student activities.
On the agenda next week, we're going to have our district nursing services plan. That's an annual report we do that outlines how well we are positioned in terms of our medical professionals, our nurses in the school to address the individual health needs of our students. We also have the rental agreements for the hockey club and the Raritan Bay, and Amy's going to discuss that.
We received the new agreements for the 18-19 school year for our rental for the ice hockey, or the ice for the hockey team, and for the swimming pool for the swim team. And the contracts represent for 18-19 for the ice rental a total estimated cost of $57,800. There was a $25 an hour increase for this year for the time. So multiplying that against, there's 136 hours that we're looking for, that's about a $3,400 increase, but it's not quite that much of an increase over last year. Last year was $56,000 because the hours are actually a little bit less, but the hourly rate did go up. And then for the swimming, for the swimming agreement, the estimated cost based on our schedule of practices and meets and so forth for 18-19 is $26,000. Last year, the contract was for closer to 30, but we only ended up paying $22,250 because when we do the contract and we schedule things out, if things get canceled, we don't get made up and we don't get charged for the time. So, this would be representative of a maximum cost $26,000. If there's practices or meets that don't take place, then we would not be charged for that stuff on an actual basis. So that would be $26,000 for this year.
Did they give you a reason for the increase in the hourly rate?
That's what they given us a contract last year that had a 3-year schedule of rates, and we were scheduled to go up $25 for this year, and then next year it will hold, no increase. So it was $400 and $425, and next year we will $25 also.
Okay, Mike, did you want to give anything on negotiations?
Going well.
Going well? Going well.
I think you're right.
Keep it brief, I like it.
Okay. Anything on personnel? No? All right. And I think that we covered pretty much everything that's going to be on the voting agenda for next week through our committees and liaisons. Does anybody have any new business?
I mentioned earlier, this is new business. We should take up the discussion of policy 9210 at our next meeting, and I also think that at our next workshop meeting, we should dive into the overall shared services agreement with the township. We should look at the memorandum of agreement that's in place right now, and just make sure that the board is appraised of what the current situation is. So I think not everybody in the board understands what document is governing the relationship.
Okay, that's fine.
And there's actually more than one document.
Yeah.
Oh, right, yeah, there's a I think you have a new staff.
Yeah, we have agreements to cover certain services that could go back and forth. We have a separate lease agreement. We have an agreement with recycling, that's separate, so there's a few of them.
So we should probably
Get them ahead of time?
I'm sorry?
You didn't get them ahead of time?
Yeah, so we'll circulate them to the...
We can post them on the board.
And can we make sure that the legal counsel gets those as well?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I just have one thing. We received an invitation tonight to a fundraiser, so I'm going to make sure that Jimmy puts it on the portal for you guys to review. Because it came addressed to me, so I'll make sure you guys get it. Any old business? Okay, seeing none, we will open the microphone for public comment. Come on up. Just remember, 3 minutes each person.
I'm going to try to be very fast. My name is Denise Thompson. I have a child at Nussbaum and at Thompson Middle School. One, I want to just thank you as a board for always being extremely professional and listening to your community members. When times have been tough, you've handled it extremely professionally. I attended my first township meeting last night on a very hot topic, which is the fields, and I did not witness that same professionalism. So I just wanted to recognize you as a board because I've been to many meetings and it's a much pleasant experience than what I witnessed last night. I'm sure you've probably heard about this proposal the township had put out about a field proposal at Stevenson Park. I know there's a bunch of us here that are definitely not in favor of this proposal. And one of the alternatives that came up was when, I guess, Tony Perry had come here, which was not the right forum, which is the shared services, where it should have been for that discussion, was the use of the Bayview fields. I don't know the inner workings or how it works, but what I'm here to ask is to lead by example for this shared services group and try to work with the town on behalf of the community to make sure that the athletes in the town can get the fields that they need in a working condition. We really need it. And I think our community does not want to see our park disrupted. That is, vital. And that was a separate topic and meeting, and I'm sure you can listen to the meeting about that. But I just really hope that you guys can work together with the township on behalf of the community.
Thank you, Denise. Thank you. Yeah, come on up.
Leo Christophe, River Plaza, Middletown. I heard reference about turf on the athletic fields from the financial report, or gave a financial report. And I heard about shared services, so that's what I want to talk about. I do live in Shady Oaks, and it would be the 4-phase construction of 9 laid end-to-end soccer fields within 60 feet of the contiguous boundary of Stevenson Park and Shady Oak. It's not, for me, not in my backyard. It's not in my front yard, okay? So I'm kind of original or different and not original. Shared services, I just found out today that across from Bay Shore in Leonardville Road, the Middletown government owns it. I was just told that this afternoon. That's what I was told. And I was told also, well, see, if I hear you talking, I might like an extra minute than 3. I can't attest to the truth of the things I hear, neither here nor at a council meeting or to a private conversation with someone in the government, the municipal, the township government. But I was told that it's the Bay Shore / forward old athletic. I guess it means athletic field, but it stops at athletic. I was told that the township owns it, and they could put 2 soccer fields on there. It's also a baseball field, multiple use, which is fine. It's in fact very clever and resourceful. It saves money if you can schedule it and whatnot. So that's an alternative for the township, instead of coming to Stevenson Park and putting it right close to contiguous boundary between Shady Oaks and Stevenson Park. I'm not going to get into any more of that, but I met can I talked to the president here at the September 4th meeting, I think, and the October 1st meeting, and you volunteered information, and then I asked at the second meeting a question to corroborate that what you told me was true. So this is what I was told, and then I just would like to get into an example of shared and non-shared service. You told me that the Township Committee has, in effect, I'm paraphrasing, maybe I added a word, they have full legal authority and power to give out with a fee in return permission for use of athletic fields on the Board of Ed property. Is that essentially accurate?
No.
Okay.
You asked me if it was true that the town permits, you told me you found out it wasn't true, that the town permits our fields, and I told you that's not true. The truth is the town permits our fields and they collect the fees. I didn't say anything about legal. It was just a conversation on whether the town rents out our fields and they collect our fees, and you told me that that's not what you heard, and I told you to contact Janet DeWitt from Parks and Rec because she does all the renting of our fields for the township. There's nothing legal in there.
That's
Just procedurally, I think your policy says that if you want to extend the time, it takes a vote.
the public can't, ma'am, the public can't hear. I can't hear now. I heard you.
So if you want to extend his time.
Can we extend his time for the 2 minutes I just took, please?
Yeah, just another couple minutes.
Yes, please, go on.
Does everybody agree?
So the recreation, Parks and Recreation Department under Janet so-and-so handle that for the municipal government, but they do put out permission and collect a fee, the township government.
Nick, would you answer that shared service?
Yeah, so just to clarify, the Board of Education has an agreement, a shared services agreement with the township. All of our athletic fields, with the exception of the high school varsity turf fields, are provided to Janet in the Parks and Rec department.
Okay.
And she then coordinates the permitting of those fields along with places like Fairview Fields and other township parks. The benefit to the town is that if you're a league and you need to have 10 fields because you're an enormous soccer league, you can have some of your fields over at Fairview, you can have some of your fields over at Nut Swamp, and you don't have to call Amy and Janet. It all gets handled in one place. In return for that, because we take Janet's time, the township collects the revenues from those permits. So the Board of Education does not see a dollar from the permitting of those fields.
Thank you very much for that clarification. I think my misunderstanding is slightly corrected, and my understanding is greatly informed.
I have a question. In the permitting of the fields, did you just say that the money that comes in from the permits is used to pay Janet?
No.
So here's the question.
It just goes to
where does the money go?
Hold on a minute, because you have to understand something. Those fields, the money that's collected, the town has put 2 facilities on our property. They have maintenance other properties. They have put up fences. They have put up lighting on our property. So that money does go towards, other things than just Janet.
Right. No, I didn't mean to insinuate that Janet took all that money for herself.
It sounded like it was
I apologize.
Janet's job.
I think the reason that Leo's asking this, and probably some of the other people here from Shady Oaks, is to try to get a better understanding of the quote-unquote offer that is an offer and isn't offer that Tony Perry made of we'll pay for Bayview Fields for the right to permit them. Well, they already have the right to permit them. I can't speak for the rest of the board, I can only speak for myself, and any offer to come and do our fields and pay for them, I'm all for it. I don't know about anybody else, but I don't.
So,
Can I'll just clarify, the email that I received from Tony Middletown also talked about permitting turf fields.
Right. So in order to do the Bayview fields, they want the rights to permit our turf fields too?
Not related to the Bayview fields, but that was needed.
They didn't put anything in for the Bayview fields.
But I think the one thing about it, somehow politics are getting in here, and they shouldn't be. But Mr. Perry that came here, who sits on the town council, came here and stated that he was here as a citizen and asked a question. It has nothing to do with the shared services, it has nothing to do, so that shouldn't even be part of this conversation.
No, but in fairness, he started off the conversation with, I'm here on behalf of the township committee.
Could I-
And then he changed it about.
Okay, but either way, there's no proposal.
No, there's no proposal.
There's no proposal, we haven't had a shared services meeting yet.
Could I give you one example of shared services that might be an unequal arrangement, and then I'll sit down?
Yeah.
Thank you very much for extending my time. I appreciate it.
1 minute, it's 1
Yeah.
minute.
Yeah.
There are other people who want to speak.
Just 5 minutes more. The Nut Swamp School has adjacent to it Normandy Park. I assumed it was always on Nut Swamp Board of Ed property. It's a artificial field. It's not really a hard surface per se at the top. It's fake grass, and it's little pellets, black pellets. Okay. I learned that I actually attended meetings quite a while when they were budgeting at the municipal committee meetings, and I found out that the shared services between this Board of Ed, not the same personnel, but maybe 3 years ago was negotiated, 2.5, whatever, and this is ballpark remembrance, that the field cost something like $1.3 million. I don't know if it included the lights, I don't know if it included the...
You have to wrap it up.
Yeah, that's the minute, so.
I'm almost finished, please, all right? So they paid for, the township paid for 85% of the cost of at least the field. I don't know about the lights and the bleachers. So this is not shared service, although the township paid the lion's share of the cost of the construction of at least the field. They cannot permit the use of it. That is not shared service to me. So the fees they...
It's not true. Okay, finish.
I'll sit down, so I won't use any of your time, and I'll sit down.
No, it's okay. Leo, I just want to clarify, the turf field at Nut Swamp School gets permitted by the township. The turf fields at the 2 high schools get permitted by the Board of Education. But the turf field at Nut Swamp is permitted by the township.
And the only reason that those high schools are because our students are using them the majority of the time. So they're being used by Middletown students.
And they use them for camps and everything else, so we need to keep control of those fields. But the other turf field, they rent out. They rent it out. We don't.
And the one at Croydon.
And the one at Croydon Hall too. We don't rent that out either.
Yeah, but they are.
But we do have,
all
right.
day.
We do have a right to use that.
Right,
Yeah.
we do have a
Yeah.
shared service agreement with them that we have the right to use.
Right. We share the use of the fields, but we don't permit them.
No.
Okay.
Leo, time's up. Other people have the right to speak.
I'm an intelligent person, and I go around and talk to intelligent people. Here, you're all intelligent. The people I talk to are intelligent. You can see how we get misinformation. Okay?
I understand, Leo. I just wanted to clarify what you said. I'm sorry.
I misunderstood.
Didn't mean to, I didn't mean to insult you.
No, thank you, Leo, but we have to let him
Well,
know.
I am from Shady Oaks, and Ms. Menouez, I will send you emails, and thank you very much for your reply. I suppose I'm going to be getting in touch with George.
And we have a time for you. We talked about it. It's
Perfect.
Friday at 11, and
Friday.
Dr. George's office will be there.
Oh, great, that's fine. I didn't know that before. I didn't come here just to get a number.
I didn't know he was, so I didn't know who to go to.
Yeah, I didn't know who you were either, so I couldn't do it. I just want to point out to you that we've attended a lot of meetings. Leo did mention the fact that we've learned a lot about the situation regarding the permitting of fields here, more than I ever wanted to know. I want to tell you one thing before I start. I've been very impressed by your presentations tonight from your people here in school. I started teaching in 1970 myself. I was part of that time when there were so few teachers, they would bring anybody in, but just wanted to come in. So, I mean, I met for the first, I think, a pre-meeting I had about what I've been doing here, and I taught English. So the fellow I had met was the chairman of the department, and I said, well, okay, I'm here to find out what I'm going to have to do here. And I said, well, what do I have to work with? And he said, well, we have chalk. So that's where I started with chalk. Anyway, you have a lot of different equipment, but I love teaching, but I did get into something else. This project they want to do at Stevenson Park, obviously the people who live in Shady Oaks are definitely against it. It's just not going to be a good thing for us to build it. But it will impact schools too, from the standpoint, in Stevenson Park, you have an ideal group of ecological things which you could take students to. You have an ecology there that can be very much studied. Ecosystems like the marsh area there, everything is there. And if they go ahead and do this development in there, it will of course destroy it. I then want to go to the fact that you are being thrown under the bus by the township. And it's not as though we believe everything they say. We learned the hard way that many things we're told are just maybe shaded a little bit. But what we're hearing is you folks are just so hard to work with, they can't seem to get anything out of you. We don't believe that. But they did mention today, we had a meeting at our complex today with the mayor and Mr. Fiore was here and several others. Mercantante, and we also the engineer in town. I took the engineer later over to the park and we went through it, and he said, it would be kind of expensive to fix that up. By contrast, the cost to do something at Bayview School, which is what the people I talked to on the committee said, particularly Mr. Fiore. Mr. Fiore did say to me that we should come talk to you and persuade you to be cooperative, something that I know I won't have to do because I'm sure you are cooperative. But the question would be simply, he said to me today that if you could come to an agreement on Bayview School, however it works out for both advantage, not just them, of course, but you as well. However you could work that out, that would enable them to drop the request for funding for these two fields they now say they want to build in Stevenson Park. So if that's possible, if you can work with them, we'll be eternally grateful, because if they ever do get around to dropping that requirement, that'll be fine with us. And I don't know exactly, you have to do a memorandum of agreement or something with them. And if you do, we'd kind of like to see it, because we're a little skeptical that sometimes we're getting all the right answers and everybody's being totally upfront and honest with us. Not you. I'm talking about somebody else. I won't say more than that. But I do want to thank you, and I will be seeing you. That's Friday at what time?
11 o'clock.
And where would that be?
It's at Administration Building attached to Bayshore Middle School.
Okay, Bayshore.
768, yeah. No, he picked the date.
I can give you more detail, Ben, and I really appreciate the fact that you're taking time out of your
We'll email you how to get there too.
Oh, I can find it. I have, I just, if I get the address.
Hosford, park on Hosford on the side.
Okay,
That's
very
where
good.
everyone else is.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for being patient and waiting tonight.
Excuse me, can I just say one thing in reference to Old Athletic Field? It has been used for sports for a long time. It's already being used for sports. My daughter has played softball there. I've seen baseball being played there through MYAA. I think BYAA has used it. So there seems to be a big misconception that we're not allowing anyone to use these fields, when in fact our fields have been used for a very long time by all sorts of rec groups. And, I think that we're kind of being scapegoated in the Stevenson Park issue right now.
Very
So,
different.
but our fields have been used for a very long time, and, you know, we'd like to meet with the Township Committee if they'd agree to meet with us and discuss it, so.
Well, we were aware that you had a meeting scheduled, and we were told that they were going to definitely come to you with a proposal. Something, did you need that in writing, is that correct? You would need something in
We
writing from
haven't
them?
seen any proposal, there's no proposal.
That's what I understand. And,
But now, one thing I just want to let you know as the public, is that we've had a good relationship with the township on shared services.
Good, okay.
We've built fields over at Nut Swamp, 2 of them there, not 1.
They mentioned that.
Lighting all over the place, fencing, but now there's a problem, and I think it's becoming between the shared services people that are handling it now, because I sat here and tonight was the first time that I heard as a board member was that we want to go back to them and talk to the township about polling places in our schools. Well, we did that with shared services 3 years ago.
Sure.
Now all of a sudden it sounds like we want to take that away. Permit in our fields, do we want to now take that away? And, you know, has things changed that we might not all know about and now nobody wants to meet? Because I really believe with shared services is the taxpayer's best friend.
We believe that too.
So-
We believe that
Can I
too.
make a suggestion that we allow the public to make their comments and then the board members can make their.
Well, I just wanted to make sure that they know that they're putting their jackets on, getting ready to leave. That,
Into their time.
you know, shared services, we do have shared services, and it seems like we're trying to pull some things back on the school side that maybe that relationship is not there. I don't know, I'm not part of shared services now, but it seems that way.
That's an internal thing.
And that is not good for any of us.
Yeah, I agree, okay.
I do have to say one thing though. The discussion on the polling places is a recommendation from our administration because of the security issue. It was a topic that it's gonna be discussed. We don't know where it's gonna go, we don't know how it's gonna end up.
We did
revisit
revisit
it.
We
but
did have
it's-
that conversation, and the security issue was that when the kids were in the school, so what we did is we closed it for the day, and now there's no kids in the school.
Right,
So
but we're trying to
we did
reopen
have
it.
that, so now we're gonna go back to shared services, and if we're having fights with the township, and we're saying to the town.
We're not fighting. All right, nobody's fighting. Nobody's fighting.
It seems that way, when I've been listening to it, seems that way.
Just to clarify.
It seems like we're sitting there and saying, no, we ain't gonna meet with them, no, we're gonna meet with them.
They canceled,
So
they
again-
canceled us, not the other way around.
So,
This is the problem.
just to be clear, we have never canceled a shared services meeting. I'm the chair of the shared services committee. If you need to find out something about the shared services committee, you can always talk to me. Hang on, let me finish.
Call me.
And we want to have dialogue with the township. I agree with you that we have had a good relationship with the township. Our last shared services committee meetings were very positive with the township. We want to keep that going. But that doesn't mean that we're going to take items off the table. To Joan's point, to Dr. George's point from the earlier conversation, we are making the improvements in the APR doors so that we can potentially keep the schools open. And we want to have a conversation in shared services, which is the appropriate venue, with the township to talk about what that would look like. So there's, and this is how rumors get started. There is
Well,
there are
hold on,
no.
don't say rumors, because I'm only repeating tonight what you had said, so.
I'm really not
So you only-
finished.
well, don't say rumors,
Jim,
because
I'm
it's not a
really-
rumor.
Let Nick
really
finish,
not
please.
finished. Okay? There are no decisions made in the shared services committee meeting by the group of us that go there. We have a conversation, we come back to the board. We do not go in there with an agenda to cut this out or cut that out. We want to continue a dialogue. We depend on our relationship with the township in order to efficiently serve the students of this township. And you know that. You're not out there to pull anything off the table. Those are your words. You don't pull anything off the table. When situations change, like new locks on the APR doors, which our taxpayers are paying for, we want to go back to the township and say we have an opportunity to keep the schools open. Let's talk about that. That's all. So I don't want anybody in the room thinking that we're going to pull anything back. This is simply about continuing a conversation.
Okay, but now, as the taxpayers sit here, and as you say, rumors start, but if the rumors are out there, the township has Lincroft School, the auxiliary Lincroft School across the street, that for $1. I've sat in executive sessions. I've sat here and listened to this board say they shouldn't be doing that, they shouldn't be doing that. Then we say, what are we gonna do, charge the taxpayer? Because it's coming out of the taxpayer's pocket. So, okay, what are we gonna do? We're gonna pull now the polling places off them because we're having a little tiff with the township?
So I'm sorry.
Are we gonna pull away the permit?
I'm cautioning you not to share whatever said in executive session.
I just said I've been in executive session, I didn't say what I shared. So, all of these things, it seems like there's a fight starting up and brewing, and it's
actually
not good for the taxpayer.
So it's exactly the opposite. We do not want to fight with them. We want to leverage our relationship with them because if you listen to what was on our proposed agenda, we want to talk about the MAC for the dance studio. We want to talk about the Class 3 officers. We need the township. We have no, anybody who engages in a fight has a reason to get into a fight. I have no reason to fight with my counterparts at the township. It works against me to fight with them.
Okay.
So that's
But the one thing is when these people are coming here and they're saying, why don't you look at it? And you said Mr. Perry was here and he was saying, why don't you just talk to the township about those fields? Let's address that. All these other things that you're talking about, you just can't bring everything to the table and go, well, you do this and I'll do this. And that's not the way negotiations work.
Exactly.
Let's do the fields. We've done the fields in the past. This gentleman's asking us to turn around and look at him. We've done that.
Right. We want
This
to
is
do
very
that.
easy to do. It would be great. We have parking already at the schools. We have the property to turn around and let the township come on and they can bond the fields and they can build turf fields. Our kids got first use out of them. Then they permit them secondary.
This is a discussion, wait, this is a discussion for after we have our shared service meeting and we could come back because,
Talking as the
I
people
know.
came to the mic and asked, and I agree with that.
This
This
isn't
is a
the
great
time.
thing. We've done it in the past. It's a great thing.
And everybody up here agrees with that, so let's let the public speak.
Hi, my name is Steve Madigan. I'm a resident at Shady Oaks, 106 Lyburn Terrace. I don't know what property, I don't know by what means, but we at Shady Oaks have been paying taxes, and the largest part of those taxes go to education. And I'm proud to be a resident of a town that has as good a system as we have here. I ask you to please consider relieving us of the burden of having the introduction of an activity that will be disturbing to our residents and affect our resale values. And by whatever means and whatever particular fields, if you could make an allowance to accommodate the town's need for 2 more fields, and please don't raise your hands, the other members of the will sincerely appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm not running for anything.
Thank you for speaking. Thanks. Good night.
Hi, everybody. Good night. I'm Rachel Konopka. I had a quick question. You may not be able to answer it, but just this discussion about the fields and the revenue and all that stuff. Is there any quantifiable revenue number available about what fees are paid to the township for the rental of BOE properties over the course of a year? What's the, how big of a bucket is this?
But before you answer,
Okay.
did you have, just so we gain time, was there something else you want to say? Because they can answer that.
Sure, okay, I'll go to the other thing. Okay, good point. My other point, and this is actually something I had spoken briefly to Pam about after the last PIC meeting, which was about a week and a half ago. I am very involved in terms of my ability to get information about what's going on in the district. I'm a member of PIC, I come to the meetings, I try to follow everything. There's a lot of information sources that I get to pull from, and there's some amazing things that are going on. I mean, I just had a quick list, like the kindergarten pilot, sounds like something really, really promising. The mental health board that was formed is phenomenal. The professional learning day and how many of our teachers are going and taking advantage of bettering themselves that ultimately better our kids. The solar program and how we've done all that. There are all these wonderful things, but it's not kind of bucketed up and packaged in a nice way to present to the parents, like in one simple little package. And I'm wondering if there's a way, and I know it would mean more resources, and more people time, but to have like a monthly newsletter from the district, at the district level. We get a lot of communications from the schools, from our kids' individual teachers, etc. If there was a way to package up like news from the Middletown district on a monthly basis, through email, through some forum, where it's just like all of this good news in one place. And also some of the upcoming dates about some of the different events that are available that I might know about from elementary, but maybe a middle school parent might want to know about it too. You know, just so it's all kind of in one easy place, like Middletown Minutes and other just general monthly newsletters. So I would just encourage that. I know it obviously is a resource thing, but I think it would really help the parents, both awareness of what's going on in the district, but also the pride of what's going on in the district. There's some really remarkable stuff, and if you don't know it, you don't know it. So I would just like to suggest that. And then my other question was, do we know how much money the fields generate?
Nick, do you want to address it?
Yeah, so question of revenue on the permitting of the fields is part of our proposed discussion that we wanted to have. And in that meeting, it will be part of the next discussion. I believe that we've made a request from Janet to get those numbers, so we're hoping that she'll bring it. Janet's really good. She's Janet, so I mean, hopefully she'll bring those to the meeting and we'll have a discussion. She's very good at her job. So.
Like order of magnitude, is it over under $1 million a year? No idea.
We have no idea.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Erica Lucchese. I have 2 girls at Mount Swamp. I had a couple questions about the integrated kindergarten pilot, and then some comments after that. The first question is this going to just be the students that are identified in the class, or is it going to be integrated where there's typical kids without any issues going on and the kids with the social emotional issues?
So, once again, ask your questions and they'll be answered at the end.
Okay.
Okay, and they should be directed towards the board.
Sure.
So they'll direct your answers.
Okay, and then my other question was, is that program going to be rolled out this year? And then my concerns, which hopefully aren't misguided by me not being completely clear on the pilot, but one of my concerns is that it somewhat sounds like we are trying to fit the child to the current kindergarten class rather than trying to fit the kindergarten class to our children. And one of the examples that I think of is my daughter is currently in kindergarten in a class of 24 kids, and she gets 20 minutes of recess at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and school ends at 3 o'clock. She has her 4 core classes all in a row, reading, math, science, social studies, before lunch. And the specials, which is like another way to break up the day, is the first class of the day. So in my opinion, that type of schedule is not conducive to any kindergartner. And perhaps if we could look at some of those things to try to help some of these issues that the kids might be having as far as being able to attend and not act out with behaviors, that could be one area that we could look at, is the schedule and the class size, which I know is a whole other issue, but 24 kids is a lot for kindergartners. The other issue I had was when you talk about peer buddies, I feel like a general ed class is the perfect place for kids with emotional issues and having those peer buddies. And from what I've read, a lot of research shows that if you have kids with behavior issues, putting them all in one class causes adverse outcomes rather than more positive outcomes. The integrated kindergarten pilot, from the first read, which perhaps I am misinformed, sounds a little bit more like a self-contained class. And if kids are having social emotional issues, I think taking them on a bus across town to one school in the middle of the year is not good for any kid's social emotional well-being, let alone a 5-year-old.
Thank you. So she had 2 questions.
Yes, Angus, do you want to address her question about the integrated?
So, thank you for your perspective. We've done a lot of research as well in the last couple of weekends of time, but prior to that, this is not a special education program, so it is not a self-contained program. These students, although they exhibit behaviors, are not behaviorally challenged. They are typically social emotionally challenged, which is different. And the components of the program are such that there will be specific direct instruction on the areas where they have lesser developed skills in the social emotional realm. So because those skills are not exactly explicitly taught in a typical kindergarten class, they're taught usually more incidentally or when appropriate. But because these students have not typically had formal preschool experience, they have not gone through that typical experience of learning, what we talked about in our presentation, which was turn-taking, sharing, how to deal with loss, or not being first, typical things that are taught in a pre-K setting. In addition to that, it is a pilot, so we will continue. That was the whole point of that we will monitor the data to see the success rate and to see the future success rate as these students are integrated back or introduced back into their general education home neighborhood school.
Okay. So all the kids are having this social emotional.
That's the idea of the pilot.
Okay. So what is the difference between?
Your 3 minutes are up. You can certainly make an appointment to talk to her if you want to talk to her further.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just also address what I think may be a misunderstanding of the schedule? You made a statement that is theoretically impossible, so I just want to address that so that there's no misunderstanding in the community. The fact that a kindergarten class would have all of their core academics taught before lunch is, I think maybe you have some information wrong, because the way that the curriculum is developed and the minutes are allotted, you mentioned before lunch. And unless lunch occurs after 1 o'clock, which none of our elementary schools do, and more specifically our kindergarten students usually eat first, there's only probably about 2.5 to at most 3 hours prior to lunch. And all of our core academics, it takes at least 5 hours to cover that content. So I just want to clarify.
You're right. I meant before recess.
Okay, seeing no one else at the mic, can we have a motion to adjourn? All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions?